Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Douluo, Awakening the Original Martial Spirit at the Beginning. Chapter 31. In the auditorium of the third venue. Sister Ying, do you think Li Fei can win this time? Qian Runshui held her chin, looked at the empty venue, and asked Sister Ying next to her. It's difficult. Although Li Fei's first level is 1,000 years old, it is only a passive soul skill and does not increase his combat effectiveness. And the great soul masters who participate in personal soul fighting are basically strong attack and agility attacks. And defensive soul masters, their first and second soul rings are equipped with soul skills that increase attack. The gap between the two soul skills is not easy to make up. To be honest, Li Fei was able to reach this point. It's already very surprising. Sister Ying shook her head and sighed. I don't think so. Li Fei will definitely win. Qian Runshui looked at the host who had slowly entered the stage, her eyes filled with inexplicable confidence. The host came to the ring, picked up the microphone, tried the tone, and announced loudly, "Now, the third one-on-one spirit battle in our third spirit fighting arena will be held. The great soul master Gui Ying with the ghost leopard pattern and the soul master Zon Rabbit with the weapon soul tungsten steel rod." It is worth noting that the Zon Rabbit Soul Master has jumped into the spirit battle and has won 7 games in a row. I don't know what Gui Ying can do. Will it end our winning streak against the Rabbit Spirit Master? Let's wait and see. Now, both parties are invited to enter. War Rabbit! War Rabbit! As the host finished speaking, the entire audience began to cheer loudly. In the past 2 months, Li Fei had gained a lot of fans, especially a soul master like him who could win consecutively after leaping through the ranks. Amidst the cheers, Li Fei slowly stepped onto the ring carrying a tungsten steel rod, staring at the thin figure coming up from the opposite side. The ghost figure opposite was much thinner than ordinary people, but it gave Li Fei brought a chill. It turned out to be Gui Ying. Isn't he the grandson of Elder Guibao? Why did he come to participate in the soul fighting? Qian Runshui said in surprise as soon as she saw the person. Li Fei may lose now. Gui Ying's soul power has reached level 29, and he was personally trained by Elder Guibao for a period of time. He is very strong in both combat effectiveness and combat experience. Li Fei wants to win. Almost impossible. Sister Ying couldn't help but sigh as she looked at the confident ghost. Li Fei, don't get hurt. Qian Runshui couldn't help but feel worried. Boy, you are the War Rabbit. I have been hearing about you everywhere in school during this period. Let me see what you are capable of. The ghost stepped forward and came to Li Fei, looking down at Li Fei with a height of 1.9 meters. Oh, I didn't expect the students of Wuhun Academy to know me. It's really surprising, Li Fei said with a smile, but his eyes were full of solemnity. He could feel that the ghosts in front of him were definitely not the big ghosts before. Soul masters can compare. Don't be too cocky, kid. The ghost's eyes turned cold, and he exerted force on his feet. When the figure reached Li Fei, he kicked him out. Boom! Li Fei spun the tungsten steel rod in his hand and stuck it on the ring, blocking Gui Ying's kick, making a dull sound, and Gui Ying was knocked back 2 steps. What a powerful force! No wonder he can defeat Xiaohu. The ghost shook his calf and looked at Li Fei in surprise. Bursts of dark light appeared all over his body. 2 yellow soul rings spun under his feet. His legs and feet became longer. Sharp claws appeared on his hands, and a black tail appeared behind him, swinging in the air. After completing the fusion of martial arts, Gui Ying's entire aura became violent, but hidden deep down was an absolute calmness. I heard that you didn't show your soul rings and soul skills in all your previous fighting souls. I wonder if you can still hide them in front of me. Then it depends on whether your strength is up to the mark. Court death. Gui Ying snorted coldly, and rushed out like a leopard, grabbing Li Fei's neck with his sharp claws. So fast, faster than any other agility attack type soul master before. Li Fei was startled, and his soul power exploded under his feet. He used explosive steps to avoid the attack of the ghost. At the same time, he used the tungsten steel rod to swing behind him. However, facing the speed of the ghost, it had no effect at all. He was lightly attacked by it. He dodged with just 1 step. You're making such big moves in front of an agility and attack type soul master, how are you going to hide now? A sneer appeared on the corner of the ghost's mouth, turned into an afterimage and rushed towards Li Fei. As soon as the figure flashed, 5 bloody wounds were made on Li Fei's back. A strong attack-type soul master like Li Fei is naturally restrained by agility attack-type soul masters. In addition, he has no soul skills to limit ghost shadows, so he can only be passively beaten in the next battle. The shadow sister in the stand said with an ugly face. What should we do? Qian Runshui looked at the 5 blood marks on Li Fei's back and said worriedly. Then it depends on whether he can realize the weaknesses of the agility attack-type soul master. Sister Ying said solemnly. On the ring, Li Fei staggered 2 steps forward. Feeling the burning pain on his back, he also took a breath of cold air. The muscles on his back squirmed to close the wound and stop bleeding. He turned to look at the ghost, and the corner of his mouth put on a sarcastic smile. That's it. The agility attack type's attack was so powerful that it only cut my skin and didn't even damage my muscles. Hearing this, the ghost's face turned ugly. The first soul ring slowly lit up, and purple light particles began to fly around its body. Li Fei's eyes were fixed on the ghost figure. The tungsten steel rod emitting an earth yellow light in his hand was put back into the storage bracelet, and he assumed a bare-handed fighting posture. As the soul power circulated, an earth yellow light emitted from his arms. He is not so arrogant as to carry an 800-pound tungsten steel rod to fight an agility-type soul master. You actually think you can defeat me without martial arts? Stop looking down on me. The first soul skill, Ghost Shadow Flash. When the ghost saw Li Fei put away the tungsten steel rod, he thought he was putting away his martial spirit. He suddenly became furious, his eyes seemed to spurt out anger, and the light particles emitted from his body merged into himself. He used his first soul skill, and the sharp claws in his hands also it became sharper, and the whole person turned into a black lightning and rushed out. The sharp claws flashed with cold light, and the dark soul power continued to breathe at the tips of the claws. With the blessing of speed, the air was cut open. Guiying was absolutely confident that he could defeat Li Fei with this blow. But Li Fei's next movements made him puzzled. He saw Li Fei quickly braced himself, and the exposed muscles of his body began to squirm and tighten. He opened his hands and embraced the void, obviously wanting to forcefully contact him. This move of his. It seems that Li Fei realized that the weakness of the agility-based soul master is the moment he attacks. As long as he attacks, his movements will deform and cannot maintain the original high speed. This moment is the best time for other soul masters to attack. The timing. The movie girl in the stand smiled. Does Li Fei have a chance to win? Qian Runshui asked slightly excitedly. The chances are slim. Sister Ying shook her head and sighed. Come on, Li Fei, Qian Runshui murmured. In the arena, Guiying's attack had already arrived in front of Li Fei. Li Fei exerted force on his feet and dodged to the right. While dodging, his right hand became a claw and grabbed Guiying's arm. As the grandson of Ghost Leopard Douluo, Guiying naturally knew the weaknesses of agility-based soul masters, and also learned how to deal with them. He alternately transformed his hands, and his attacking hand changed from his right hand to his left hand, avoiding Li Fei's big hand. While swallowing his soul power, he grabbed Li Fei's chest with a claw. The sharp claw wind tore Li Fei's shirt, revealing his muscles that looked like bronze. The imaginary feeling of sharp claws digging into the flesh did not appear. Instead, it felt like I was grabbing onto a piece of hard granite, unable to move in at all. The ghost looked at the position of his attack in disbelief, and found that the khaki soul power was flowing on the surface of his skin like a stream of light, constantly resisting his attack. I do not believe. The ghost roared angrily, increasing its soul power output, and a dark light shone brightly on its sharp claws, breaking through the layer of soul power on Li Fei's chest that looked like Gang Qi. Iron. As Li Fei shouted, his skin showed a slight pink color, and the muscles in his chest tightened quickly, blocking the ghost's sharp claws. There was a clang sound of metal clashing, and the sharp claws were blocked out easily. The iron block was created by Li Fei using the absolute body control ability of his original martial soul, coupled with the control of muscles and force with the random splitting wind hammer method, and based on his understanding of the 6 postures when watching One Piece in his previous life. The defense may not be as good as the 6 styles in the pirate world, but the advantage is that you can move around at will. The right hand turned into a claw and turned into a fist. The earth-colored soul power continued to surge, mixed with roaring sounds, and punched the ghost. The ghost's expression was ugly, and he kept issuing warnings in his heart. He quickly pulled his hand back and fled away like a cheetah that failed to hunt and retreated. Boom! The fist hit the ring hard, and cracks appeared in the ring instantly, and a shallow pit of about 2 meters appeared. What a great power! Is this something a soul master can achieve? The ghost's pupils shrank, he swallowed, and looked at the shallow pit under Li Fei's fist in disbelief. If he was hit, he would be disabled even if he was not dead. He finally put away his contempt. Your Highness, do you know this self-created soul skill? The movie sister in the stands also looked at Li Fei in disbelief. Seeing that Qian Runshui next to her was not surprised at all, but had an expected expression, she knew that Qian Runshui should know. This is not actually a soul skill, it is just the application of soul power. An idea that Li Fei told me before is to condense the soul power and then release it in an instant, causing huge destructive power. I just didn't expect it was achieved so quickly, and I couldn't even succeed. Qian Runshui said with some pride. Concentrate the soul power and then release it instantly. Not only can you improve your strength, but it also consumes less energy. It's really a good idea. Sister Ying looked at the two people who were constantly fighting on the stage, and she also showed a look of surprise. This technique is exactly Tsunade's strange power in Naruto. By improving the explosive step, a self-created soul technique, Li Fei turned the original speed-increasing method into increasing strength. But Li Fei can't do Tsunade's job of integrating strange power into life and easily reaching the point of overpowering mountains. He can only finish the attack at the moment of attack, which can be regarded as a semi-finished skill. You can only use the technique Grandpa taught you. Guiying exchanged several blows with Li Fei, but felt aggrieved. His attacks could not break through Li Fei's defense, and he did not dare to let Li Fei hit him, so he could only keep dodging Li Fei's attacks. The second soul skill, Ghost Shadow, increase. The second soul ring lit up, and the ghost's speed instantly doubled, and it began to circle rapidly around Li Fei, and its arms began to tremble at high speed. The next step should be a big move. Li Fei could tell from the flash of his figure that the ghost was very uncomfortable. He guessed that it might be because he had forcibly performed some kind of technique that could not be used now, and that was why he was like this. I have to be careful. My soul power is not as good as his, so I have to give full play to my physical advantages. Not daring to be careless at all, Li Fei took a deep breath, and his soul power began to circulate in his body. He stared at the ghost figure with an extremely focused expression. Victory or defeat can be determined in an instant, and Guiying's next attack is the key. There are basically no flaws. The ghost figure who surrounded Li Fei for a few times frowned and his face was solemn. Li Fei had always faced him, and it was difficult to find opportunities, and it has always maintained the state of increasing ghost figures. My soul power is depleted too quickly and I can't continue like this. Give it a try. The first soul skill, Ghost Shadow Flash. The first soul ring lit up, and the whole person disappeared in place like black lightning. The nails on his right claw more than doubled in length, and the dark light continued to condense. Not good. The speed is more than twice as fast as before. Shave. Li Fei's expression changed drastically. His leg muscles and soul power simultaneously compressed and exploded. He moved 2 meters sideways, and his energy was as concentrated as ever. In an instant, Li Fei felt that the entire arena environment had undergone a subtle change. The ghost's attack began to slow down in his eyes, and he could clearly see the cold light flashing on the claws and the swallowing of soul power. I saw it, the attack is here. Li Fei twisted his body, and clawed his right hand towards the space on the right. Guiying's hand was caught directly in his hand as if it was being sent over, and his arm directly brought Guiying's entire body up. If you can't fly, you won't be able to take advantage of speed. The ghost shadow was caught in Li Fei's hand, and the powerful force made it impossible for him to break away. His whole body was thrown into the air like a sack, and then he was smashed towards the ring. Boom, boom. After hitting it hard twice, I felt that the ghost had lost its fighting ability, so I threw it to the side of the ring. War Rabbit! War Rabbit! Looking at the ghost figure who fell to the ground, many spectators in the auditorium cheered loudly. They all witnessed Li Fei's victory. The winner is our Soul Master War Rabbit. Let us congratulate him for winning 8 consecutive victories in the Great Soul Master Arena. The host checked the ghost and found that it had indeed lost its combat effectiveness, and immediately announced the result of the game. Are you okay? Li Fei took out some clothes from the storage bracelet and put them on, slowly walked up to Guiying and stretched out his hand. He also recognized Guiying's martial spirit. He had lived in the spirit hall for a while. He had also met Elder Guibao and asked him for advice on spiritual practice, so he naturally knew what this martial spirit represented. I'll win next time. Guiying was stunned for a moment, snorted coldly, and still held Li Fei's hand. Then you have to work hard. Li Fei pulled him up, supported him and walked towards the bottom of the tower. As soon as Li Fei and his ghost walked out of the contestant area, they heard Qian Runshui's voice. Li Fei, are you okay? Qian Runshui ran to Li Fei's side and asked worriedly. It's okay, you should know that this injury is nothing to me. Li Fei shook his head and said it was nothing. Are you His Highness Qian Runshui? Guiying stared at Qian Runshui for a while, pushed Li Fei away, forced his body to kneel down on one knee. Guiying has met His Highness. Get up. Qian Runshui waved her hands casually and continued to look at Li Fei worriedly. Now that your highness is here, you are the Li Fei who has the first ring in 1,000 years, as Grandpa said. No wonder you never use soul rings in your soul fighting. At this time, Guiying also guessed Li Fei's identity and showed a look of surprise. I have no choice. After all, if the first ring of the millennium appears, it will cause an uproar. Let's wait until I have the strength. Li Fei said with a smile. I see, then I won't disturb you and His Highness and will leave first. Seeing the warning in Qian Runshui's eyes, Guiying was very understanding and immediately said goodbye. Regardless of his physical weakness, he walked outside. You. Li Fei didn't know what to say, so he walked towards Wuhun Hall with Qian Runshui. He passed by Yiren Cake Shop and bought some strawberry cakes before entering Wuhun Hall. On the other side, Guiying returned home with a bruised nose and face. As soon as he entered the door, he saw his grandfather Guibao drinking tea in the living room. What happened to your face? You were beaten. Ghost Leopard could see the injuries on Guiying's body at a glance. There were many bruises on the muscles and bones. Although they were not fatal, they still required some convalescence to recover. It's just that I lost the soul battle with others. Ghost Shadow walked up to Ghost Leopard and said with embarrassment, covering his face. After all, it was a bit embarrassing to lose to a soul master who was 10 levels lower than himself. If you lose, you lose. Can't you just win it next time? Why are you covering your face? Ghost Leopard frowned slightly and said angrily. Grandpa, I lost to the Li Fei you told me about before. He didn't even use soul skills, but relied on his strong physical fitness and skills to defeat me. Ghosting said embarrassedly. It seems that I still underestimated that little guy. He asked me for advice on allergic attack type soul masters before, but I didn't expect that he used it on you. Ghost Leopard sighed. Grandpa, you told me before that Li Fei came to Wuhun Palace to teach His Highness Qian Runshui. Can you use your relationship to let me learn with you so that my next soul ring can also surpass limit absorption, so my strength will definitely surpass those of the same class? Guiying said with an expectant look on his face. I'm afraid this won't work. The Grand Priest personally issued an order that no one is allowed to disturb Li Fei's practice of Qian Runshui, not even His Highness the Pope. Hearing this, Guiying lowered his head in despair, and then heard his grandfather's voice again. It seemed that things had taken a turn. However, I also have Li Fei's theory here and I know the principles. I can also help you practice. In addition, you can go to Wuhun School to find a child named Li Fan. He is Li Fei's younger brother and has accepted Li Fei's teachings since he was a child. For training, he is also a soul master who can absorb soul rings beyond the limit. You can go to him and he should be able to help you train. Ghost Leopard said solemnly. Li Fan, the guy who was number 1 in the 1st grade, even defeated the guy in the 4th grade. He turned out to be Li Fei's younger brother. Ghosting said in surprise. You know him. You know, that Li Fan is the guy who just entered school today. In just 6 months, he defeated masters from 1st to 4th grade, and even defeated a great soul master who had just reached level 20, and the soul power is only level 14. Guiying told what he had seen in school. Then you must ask for advice. Don't treat others with an arrogant attitude because of my status. We must treat each other as equals. Do you understand? Douluo reminded me. I know, Grandpa, Li Fei, who returned to the mimetic environment and began to practice, did not use the extreme and gravity environment to exercise as usual. Instead, he constantly simulated the battle with the ghost leopard in his mind, and the soul power in his body began to continuously impact the meridians in his body. After fighting against Ghost Leopard, Li Fei also realized that he lacked the soul skill to kill with one hit. It should be said that he was able to suppress the soul skill, whether it was a razor, an iron block, or the aura transformed from soul power, or strange power, are considered permanent skills. Of course, Li Fei never thought about using soul rings and soul skills to give himself the ability to kill with one hit, but wanted to achieve it through self-created soul skills. In the following days, Li Fei started to create his own high-attack soul skills while practicing. At the same time, he also improved several existing skills so that he could integrate them into his life and steadily improve his strength. Occasionally, he also goes to the spirit fighting arena to fight spirits to improve his combat experience. Qian Runshui is also strengthening her soul power control ability while exercising her body and mind, learning strange powers and turning her soul power into Gangqi to improve her strength. In this way, 6 months have passed, and it has been a full year since Li Fei came to Wuhun Palace. Qian Runshui reached the standard of absorbing 1,000-year soul ring 2 months ago, but in order to prevent in case, I still practiced for 2 more months. Elder Yu Long, in order for His Highness to absorb the soul ring smoothly, you'd better knock out the soul beast in an instant. Li Fei suggested while walking in the Stardo forest. This time it was not only for Qian Runshui to hunt. Li Fei's soul power had also reached level 20 for more than 2 months, and he also needed a soul ring. The 2 elders Yulong and Agatha still helped him hunt for the soul ring. I understand, His Highness's soul beast was found 2 months ago. What about you? What soul ring do you want? Yulong said with a smile. As early as 2 months ago, when Li Fei said that he could hunt soul rings, Qian Daoliu asked Yulong to go to the Stardo forest to look for suitable soul beasts. After 2 days of searching, he finally found the target and only waited for Qian Daoliu. Just let Ren Shui come over for hunting. My goal has been set a long time ago, the Vajra Bull of about 5,000 years. Li Fei said with a smile. That's just right, there is a herd of Vajra Bulls near the Golden Ape. After hunting for soul rings for His Highness, they also hunted for you. Yu Long nodded. Soon the 4 of them arrived at a fruit forest. Li Fei also picked a few bananas and looked at a group of monkeys playing in the distance. The monkeys were flaming monkeys, but among the monkeys there was the monkey, covered with golden down, exudes this sacred aura. It is Qian Runshui's target soul beast, the Golden Ape. It is a mutated soul beast with 2 attributes, sacred and fire. Its main attack method is the sacred flame fist condensed with soul power. With 2 titled Douluo, Yulong and Ayurveda, hunting souls is a very simple matter. Yulong reached the group of monkeys in a flash, and knocked out the golden ape with a flick of his knife. He exuded a terrifying aura all over his body. The surrounding monkeys fled directly, not caring about the golden ape at all. Your Highness, come and kill it to absorb the soul ring. Yulong threw the golden ape directly in front of Qian Runshui. Qian Runshui nodded, summoned the angel holy sword, and pierced the golden ape's throat directly, ending its life. A lavender soul ring appeared instantly. Do as I say, don't be careless. Li Fei reminded. Okay, I know. Qian Runshui also nodded solemnly, sat cross-legged on the ground, pulled the golden ape's soul ring around her body, and began to absorb the power of the soul ring. Griefish, you stay here and watch His Highness, I'll bring over the soul beast this kid wants. Yulong stared at Qian Runshui for a while and found that although Qian Runshui looked in pain, the soul power in his body did not go crazy and remained within a controllable range. He understood that everything went well with the absorption of the soul ring this time. Okay, go ahead. Yulong's figure walked towards the direction of the Vajra barbarian bull group like a snake, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Fei could only stare at the Goliath Douluo in boredom. This is the benefit of being powerful. The danger of hunting soul beasts is basically not felt. Yulong was very fast. In less than 10 minutes, he came back with a 5,000-year-old Vajra bull. He pierced the head of the Vajra bull with a sword, and Li Fei also began to absorb the soul ring. The absorption was smoother than Li Fei imagined. It was successfully absorbed in less than half an hour. Li Fei opened his eyes and Qian Runshui had not yet successfully absorbed it. Li Fei stood up, 2 purple soul rings slowly rose up, his whole soul power began to surge, and dark golden soul power spurted out from his body. Well, not bad. The soul power is level 22. Let me see if you can use the soul skills. Second soul skill. Vajra is indestructible. Li Fei shouted softly, and immediately felt that the soul power circulated in his body and spread all over his body instantly. His whole body turned golden yellow, as if he had been coated with a layer of gold powder. Dang, dang, the hands touched each other, and the sound of metal collision kept ringing. It was obvious that the defense was amazing. The defense power has been doubled, and the speed and strength have also been doubled, and as the soul power increases, the effect will be improved. Li Fei was very satisfied and told the effect of his soul skills. However, it still conceals a part of it. It goes without saying that the 2 effects of invulnerability and water and fire are invulnerable. Only those who get this soul skill by hunting Vajra bulls basically know about it. What really surprises Li Fei is that after activating this soul skill, his soul power has been integrated with his body, soul, skills, and even will. Not only is the blessed combat power amazing, but it is also difficult to be shaken by external forces. Especially the effect of integrating essence, energy and spirit as a guiding light for him, laying the foundation for the 3 flowers to gather in the tripod and the 5 chi to rise to the source in the future. A very powerful soul skill. With this soul skill, plus the self-created soul skills you have studied, some low-level soul masters are no longer your opponents. The A Beautiful said with emotion. It seems that we have ignored the role of the original martial soul before and always thought it was a waste martial soul. Now it seems that we did not find the right method before. Yu Long seemed to have seen Li Fei's indestructible Vajra and other souls. There are some differences between the masters, so he slowly spoke. Elder Yu Long is joking. I am just a great soul master now. I am not sure what the future will hold. Li Fei said modestly. Okay, His Highness has almost finished absorbing it. We can go back soon. The agouti interrupted the 2 of them. The lavender soul ring under Qian Runshui began to rotate slowly, and the whole person's aura also changed. After a change, 3 teams of snow-white wings appeared behind her, and she slowly flew up with Qian Runshui in tow. With an explosion of soul power, Qian Runshui opened her eyes glowing with golden light, and her golden hair swayed in the wind, looking heroic. Li Fei, I succeeded. Qian Runshui hugged Li Fei directly as she landed, shouting happily. Ahem. Li Fei was a little confused and coughed twice. Qian Runshui reacted and immediately let go of Li Fei. Her pretty face was also red, and she looked at the 2 elders next to her. Yu Long's agouti next to her looked at the sky, looking at each other as if something attracted their attention. Release your soul skills and let me take a look, Li Fei said curiously. Look carefully. Qian Runshui was a little proud. She walked to the side, aimed at a big tree, clenched her right fist, and sprinted. The first soul skill Angel Assault. As Qian Runshui shouted, her fist was wrapped with a golden light shield and hit the tree hard. The huge force directly broke the tree and flew dozens of meters away. This is a soul skill that combines strange power. Li Fei looked surprised. Qian Runshui's strange power has always stayed at the stage of condensing soul power, and the power has not increased much, but the power of the attack just now is the best in 1,000 years. The ring cannot be reached either. That's right, my first soul skill, Angel Assault, is originally a soul skill that relies on the concentration of soul power to be released. With it, I understand how to condense soul power. With the skills you taught me, the strange power can be considered initially completed. Quote. Then congratulations, Your Highness, if you go back and collect the 2nd soul ring for half a year, then according to my calculations, the 3rd ring can reach the 10,000-year level. It's not that Li Fei doesn't want Qian Runshui to practice for a longer period of time, but the higher the cultivation level of the soul beast, the stronger the mental impact. The trans-limit theory is more suitable for the first 2 soul rings. After 10,000 years, it is not through meditation at all. The increased mental power can withstand it, so the remaining soul rings still have to be calculated according to the traditional soul master's method of absorbing soul rings. But even so, the improvement brought by the first 1,000-year ring can allow the third ring to absorb the 10,000-year soul ring and accomplish unprecedented feats. The most important thing is that for a being like Qian Runshui with an innate soul power of level 20, if he is suppressed too hard, his cultivation will be delayed. It is better to return to the normal acquisition of soul rings as soon as possible. Well, I listen to you. Qian Runshui nodded, and then said with a smile, now that I have combat soul skills, I should be able to participate in the soul battle with you. I didn't expect you still care about this. Okay, when you go back, I will accompany you to participate in the soul fighting again. Li Fei was helpless. Ever since he first participated in the soul fighting, Qian Runshui had been dragging Li Fei down because he had no soul skills. He had been brooding about it. He didn't expect that even half a year later, he still remembered it clearly. After returning to Wuhun Hall, Li Fei could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Ever since he was half carried to Wuhun Hall, he had been anxious in his heart, fearing that Qian Runshui would not be able to reach the first ring of the millennium. Let your family be killed. Now that Qian Runshui has obtained the soul ring, this anxiety has been relieved. Not only that, after Qian Runshui successfully absorbs it, Wuhun Palace will definitely attach great importance to him, and the corresponding resources will be more abundant. However, what made Li Fei a little confused was that Qian Zunji, as the Pope, did not look for him after Qian Runshui obtained the soul ring. This made him worried for a long time, but in the end, he did not wait for a long time, so he peaceful training, practice and soul fighting. During the break, Li Fei also borrowed a lot of books from the soul guidance device area in the Wuhun Palace library. Unfortunately, most of the soul guidance device forging methods recorded in them were incomplete, and there were only a few first-level soul guidance devices. The manufacturing method is complete. Sure enough, Douluo continent doesn't pay much attention to soul guides. These first-level soul guides have difficulty fighting against great soul masters. Looking at the description of the power of a soul guide above, Li Fei also lamented that such a good thing was not taken seriously. Thinking about Douluo and the subsequent development of soul tools, Dosan even more so because of the soul guide. Because of this, there was only a little bit left in the Star Do forest, and I suddenly felt like I hated the iron. But fortunately, there are basic manufacturing methods, and I can lay bricks on it. There should be no problem in researching a soul guidance device with several weak points. But the biggest problem now is that I don't have that much energy. If I spend part of my time studying soul guides, my cultivation will definitely fall behind. An idea suddenly emerged in Li Fei's mind, that is, to build a college or sect by himself, so that the research and manufacture of soul guidance devices can be left to them, and he can practice with peace of mind. According to the information obtained in the Wuhun Hall, the current main body Wuhun soul masters belong to the Pearl Mengchen category and are not taken seriously. However, due to my foresight, I have a certain understanding of the main body Wuhun and have also figured out some cultivation methods. Can the Numenon sect be released in advance? The more he thought about it, the more excited Li Fei became, and the more he felt that it was feasible. As long as he could show the power of the original martial soul, he would definitely be able to attract many original soul masters. He could even absorb the children who had just awakened the original martial soul through the spirit hall, and it would be very easy to build the original sect, possible. Of course, Li Fei is not in a hurry now. There are a lot of things that need to be prepared to build a sect or school, especially the funds, which must be in place. Just like Shrek Academy in the original work, even if the teachers are strong, it will waste a lot of practice time. He doesn't want to be irresponsible, so he has to be prepared. With his new goal in mind, Li Fei lived a very fulfilling life, greedily absorbing the knowledge in the Wuhun Palace library. After 6 months passed, Qian Runshui was taken by Yulong and Agatha to hunt for the soul ring. It was much younger than Li Fei. It was a 4,000-year-old holy lion of light. What was terrifying was Qian Runshui. After absorbing the soul ring, his soul power reached level 28, and his cultivation level suddenly surpassed that of Li Fei, which was terrifying. The first soul skill, Angel Thrust. The second soul skill, Sunlight Slash. At the Wuhun Palace training ground, Qian Runshui was fighting with Li Fei. The two sides were going back and forth, displaying various fighting skills and constantly interspersing them. This is the training that the two of them must have every day after Qian Runshui's second ring. They have one god-level martial spirit and one true martial spirit. They basically have no opponents in the Great Spirit Master division of the spirit fighting arena, so they can only practice against each other, improve your skills and experience. 3 more years passed like this. Li Fei was 11 years old, his height reached 1.8 meters, and his soul power reached level 37. During this period, he went to the Stardow forest to hunt a green spirit toad that was in its early 10,000 years. As a water and spiritual soul beast, the Green Ling Chan's most famous attack method is to use static breaking. It gave Li Fei a perceptual soul skill. He can sense the opponent's movements through mental power and even predict the opponent's attack trajectory. It can be said that it is a very good auxiliary soul skill. Qian Runshui is also 10 years old, 1.6 meters tall, and her soul power has reached level 43. She can only be said to be worthy of level 20 innate soul power. Even if Li Fei practiced hard, he could not catch up. On this day, the two of them were fighting in the training ground. Various soul skills were constantly being thrown at each other as if they were free, just to defeat each other. Your Highness, something happened. Sister Ying's figure suddenly appeared, kneeling on one knee next to her, with a worried look on her face. Li Fei and Qian Runshui collided, and they fell to both sides. Looking at the worried Yingji, Li Fei knew that something had happened to Qian Zunji, which also meant that the future Tang Shenhuang was born. Sister Ying, what happened? Qian Runshui took back her martial spirit and asked with a puzzled look on her face. His Majesty the Pope. His Majesty the Pope, he took the two Douluo Ju and Ghost to fight for the secret treasure with Tang Hao of the Haoshan sect. Tang Hao was seriously injured by Tang Hao, who had broken through to the title Douluo. Soon after returning to Wuhun Hall, he was seriously injured. Sacrificed. Sister Ying said the shocking news with difficulty. What did you say? Father, he is dead. Qian Runshui froze on the spot, looking at Sister Ying in disbelief. Although Qian Zunji failed to fulfill his father's responsibilities, he was still Qian Runshui's father in the final analysis. Hearing the news suddenly at this time also dealt a certain blow to Qian Runshui. My condolences. Li Fei stepped forward and hugged Qian Runshui in his arms to comfort her. He couldn't tell what happened between Qian Zunji and Bibi Dong now, and he couldn't tell Qian Zunji that Bibi Dong personally killed him. One is for revenge, and the other is for the divine test of Rakshasa God. We can only temporarily let Qian Runshui put her hatred on Tang Hao, so that Qian Runshui's hatred can have a sustenance and not have random thoughts. Woo! Qian Runshui hugged Li Fei and started crying. She cried so hard that the pear blossoms were covered with rain, and she was heartbroken. Li Fei couldn't help but feel a little distressed, and gently patted Qian Runshui's back to comfort him. After waving his hand to Sister Ying turned into a shadow and disappeared. Li Fei picked up Qian Runshui like a princess and walked towards the house behind the enshrinement hall. As soon as he walked into the house, Li Fei saw a middle-aged man with blonde hair. He immediately thought of the great worshipper Qian Douluo and said respectfully, Senior. Grandpa. When Qian Runshui saw Qian Douluo, she jumped out of Li Fei's arms, threw herself into his arms and began to cry bitterly. Senior, I'll take my leave now. Li Fei turned around very wisely and walked out of the villa and walked towards his home. This was Qian Runshui's family matter and he didn't want to interfere. Moreover, the entire Soul Master world will be in turmoil in the future, and the Pope's fall will definitely cause various forces to be ready to move. After Li Fei returned home, he kept it at home and never left the house. He spent every day training, studying soul skills, soul guidance devices, and eating with his parents, ignoring what was going on outside the window. In the Wuhun Palace, Bibi Dong relied on her identity as a saint and the support of the two elders Zhu and Gui to successfully take the position of Pope. At this time, the news that Qian Zunji was dead was also released, and the entire Soul Master world everything started to turmoil. All the major forces began to seize the opportunity to plant informants in the Wuhun Palace, but were killed by the decisive Bibi Dong. They also used the Elder Palace and their own strength to put pressure on the Haoshan sect to hand over Tang Hao. In the end, Tang Xiao had to give in to the pressure and remove Tang Hao from the Haoshan sect. At the same time, he chose to close the sect and hide from the world. This also allowed the major forces to see the methods of the new pope, put away their petty thoughts, and realize that Bibi Dong was not simple. It only took 2 months to suppress the different voices in Wuhun Hall. Except for the transcendence in the enshrinement hall, it can be said that there is only one voice in the entire Wuhun Hall, and that is Bibi Dong. In the Pope's hall, Bibi Dong sat in the Pope's exclusive seat with her legs crossed. Behind her stood 2 Douluo, Ju and Ghost, looking at Qian Runshui standing below. I want you to disguise yourself as Shui Qinghe, the crown prince of the Tondo Empire, and seize this opportunity to take control of the entire Tondo Empire and prepare for Wuhun Palace to wipe out the entire continent in the future. Bibi Dong said in a calm voice. You don't like me anyway, and staying in Wuhun Palace will only make you annoying. So I promise you that you can go undercover, but I have one request. No, I should take someone with me. Qian Runshui's face was cold and she looked at Bibi Dong with complicated eyes. For 2 months, she had been secretly investigating the cause of Qian Zunji's death. It seemed that everything was because of Tang Hao, but there were countless clues. All clues point to the woman in front of him. She couldn't believe it and didn't want to face Bibi Dong again, so when Bibi Dong asked her to go undercover in the Tondo royal family, she agreed without any hesitation. But at the same time, she also wanted to take Li Fei away from here. She was afraid that Li Fei would change because of Bibi Dong and become a cold-blooded person like Bibi Dong. Li Fei, no, I want to reform Wuhun Academy, and he is a very important part of it. Bibi Dong instantly realized who Qian Runshui was talking about and refused directly. Even though she had not seen Li Fei a few times in the past few years, she also knew through other channels that Li Fei would basically borrow books from the library when he was fine. Read them all, the theoretical knowledge is very rich, and it is the best choice as a teacher. She even saw a trace of Yu Shaoging in Li Fei, but Li Fei was more talented and bolder. Why, you have all Li Fei's soul ring over limit absorption theory and meridian theory. You are even more perfect than him with your knowledge. Can't you just reform it yourself? Qian Runshui's face turned ugly. Asked angrily, but there was indeed a trace of pleading in his eyes. Like this, 1 year. Li Fei will teach a group of people I like in Wuhun Academy for 1 year. After 1 year, I will let him go with you. Seeing the pleading in Qian Runshui's eyes, Bibi Dong's heart ached, and she immediately softened her heart and changed her conditions. 1 year was enough for Li Fei to let Hu Liena and others complete the first absorption of the ultra-limited soul ring. It is enough for you and the elders to teach you occasionally. Okay, then I will be an undercover agent again in a year. Qian Runshui gritted her teeth and agreed. Okay, just 1 year is enough for you to learn political knowledge. By the way, you can absorb this Yunwan soul bone. It can help you disguise your appearance and complete your undercover mission. Bibi Dong nodded, stretched out her hand and a soul bone appeared, and flew in front of Qian Runshui. You are so well prepared. It seems that everything has been considered. Qian Runshui sneered, turned around, left the Pope's palace and walked outside. Looking at the Yunwan skull in her hand, as one of the angelic costumes, Qian Runshui understood that this plan might have been proposed by her grandfather, and her resentment towards Bibi Dong was lessened. Yugon, go to Li's house and bring Li Fei over to me, and tell him that I have something to ask him. Looking at Qian Runshui's back, Bibi Dong turned to look at Zhu Douluo. Yes, Your Majesty. Yu Guan smiled casually, turned into an afterimage and disappeared. Li family villa. Li Fei played with the silver-white revolver. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. He took out 6 of the dozens of special silver bullets on the table and stuffed them into the revolver. Then he put it back into the storage bracelet. The revolver's name was Bai Ji, which was barely considered a second-level soul guide. With the bullets stuffed with black powder, the lethality was enough to kill the soul saint without him being prepared. This is a great harvest in these 2 months. Suddenly, Li Fei took an attacking stance and aimed at the door. At that moment, he felt a fiery breath, which was so clear that he was definitely not wrong. As expected, he is the person whom the Pope asked me to come and invite in person. His soul master can feel my presence just by his strength. A girly voice sounded from outside the door, her tone full of surprise. Then a slight burst of soul power opened the door, revealing a blonde, somewhat effeminate person. Junior Li Fei has met Elder Ju. Seeing the visitor, Li Fei immediately knelt down on one knee and said respect. Okay, come with me. The Pope is waiting for you. Yu Guan waved his hand and told Li Fei to get up, turned around and flew towards the spirit hall. I have seen His Majesty the Pope. In the Pope's palace, Li Fei looked respectfully at Bibi Dong above. Li Fei, the reason why I came to you this time is to ask you to become a teacher at Wuhun Academy and help me teach a few students for a year. In 1 year, Qian Runshui will go to the Tondo Empire, and you will go with her. Bibi Dong said calmly. Yes, Your Majesty the Pope. Li Fei instantly thought of the future golden generation Huliena and the others in the Wuhun Palace. Thinking that they should have awakened the Wuhun by now, Bibi Dong should have asked him to teach them. Huliena, Xie Yu and others are all orphans adopted by people like Bibi Dong. Each of them has at least the 8th level of innate soul power. They will be the mainstay of the future spirit hall, and they are also the team trained by Bibi Dong personally. One of the people you teach, Huliena, is my new disciple. Your goal is to make her first spirit ring reach at least 800 years, and the remaining 6 people should be about the same. After that, I allow you to pick a soul bone from the treasure house. Bibi Dong offered the temptation. As one of the most precious treasures in the entire Douluo continent, the soul bone only costs dozens of yuan even in the Wuhun Palace. It would not be easy to take it out. It can be seen that she also spent a lot of money this time. Li Fei will do his best. Li Fei agreed immediately, and at the same time he was thinking about what soul bones he wanted, and the priority must be the trunk bones and skulls. After thinking about it, Li Fei thought of the wisdom skull that Tang San obtained in the original work. Judging from its name, you can tell that the main function of this soul bone is to condense the spirit, active thinking, and strengthen intelligence. In particular, the 2 characteristics of active thinking and enhanced intelligence can play an important role both in combat and practice. And if he remembered correctly, in the original work, after Tang San absorbed the soul bone, his mental power reached the level of soul fighting. Luo's level. As a time traveler, his mental power should not be weaker than that of the soul saint after being absorbed in 2 lives. After leaving the Pope's hall, Li Fei glanced at the enshrinement hall in the depths, then walked towards Wuhun Academy, took out the certificate issued by Wuhun Palace, and successfully entered the academy. This was the first time Li Fei entered the academy. Before, he had looked from the mountain behind Wuhun Hall like Qian Runshui. The atmosphere in the academy was far more serious than what he had seen from a distance. Quick, I heard that Li Fan and Yu Yi are fighting again. I wonder who will win this time. Of course it's Li Fan. He is the 2nd ring in 1,000 years, and his soul power has reached level 29. He is only 1 level short of becoming a soul lord. He also has a record of defeating the soul lord. Yu Yi is not weak either. He is the grandson of Demon Bear Douluo. I heard that the challenge to Li Fan this time is because he has broken through to the soul lord. He has an absolute chance of winning. The surrounding students were discussing and running towards a building in the distance, which was very lively. It's interesting that Xiaofan fights with the grandson of the demon bear. Li Fei showed an interesting expression and followed the surrounding students into the auditorium. He sat in the last row and looked at the 2 people on the stage. Li Fan, who was 1.75 meters tall, held an iron rod in his hand and looked at Yu Yi across from him with a solemn face. Compared to Li Fan, Yu Yi was even taller and looked like a crazy bear. Li Fan, I will definitely defeat you this time and prove that I am the strongest student in this class. After a bear roar, Yu Yi's martial soul possessed him, his yellow-purple optimal configuration soul ring lit up, and he looked at Li Fan with cold eyes. Then you can try it. Li Fan's eyes were cold and firm, his 2 soul rings, 1 yellow and 1 purple, lit up. Following the referee's order, he rushed out. The first soul skill, Mad Transformation. The third soul skill, Flame Blast. Yu Yi roared angrily, his eyes instantly turned red, his body expanded in a circle, and his whole body was ignited with raging fire before he crashed towards Li Fan. It seems that Xiaofan has met his opponent. The Blood Devil Mad Bear martial spirit is most suitable for mad transformation skills. It can ensure that the user remains sane during the mad transformation, and can also make the increase of madness faster than that of ordinary martial arts madness. 10% stronger. Seeing this, Li Fei was also a little surprised. The second soul skill, Fear of gold slash. Li Fan waved his hand, and the iron rod was dyed golden, and he hit it hard like a dump truck hitting him. Boom. The tyrannical force directly stopped Yu Yi halfway, but he was also directly pushed out by the powerful reaction force. What a great defense. Looking at the two people who were fighting madly, Li Fei also sighed with emotion. This Yu Yi is a reckless man. He relies on his violent strength and defense, and does not use too many skills. He always confronts Li Fan head-on. Li Fan also uses the random cloak stick technique to the fullest. Each stick is more violent than the other. Each stick is more powerful than the other, and as the power is superimposed, it slowly gains the upper hand. Well, why is Juliana here? Li Fei looked at it with gusto, and with a glance, a 6-year-old girl walked straight towards him with a charm that no child could have. Before he came here, he had seen the information of Juliana and others. There were portraits on it, so he recognized the person at a glance. You are my next teacher, right? I don't think you are anything special. Juliana came to Li Fei's side and said with a hint of arrogance in her eyes. It's really nothing special, but I can still teach you this little girl. Li Fei smiled and rubbed Juliana's head, rubbing her black hair into a mess. You dare to rub my head? Juliana pointed at Li Fei angrily and muttered, and I'm not a little girl. Yes, yes, Li Fei agreed perfunctorily, pointing to the battle in the audience. Let's watch the battle first. Ha, Juliana snorted coldly and turned her attention to the two people on the ring. Looking at the violent battle between the two, she couldn't help but murmured, it's so awesome. My heart is also unconsciously full of expectations, looking forward to how I will become stronger in the future. Li Fei shook his head and said nothing, focusing on watching the competition on the field. At this time, Li Fan relied on his first soul skill, the Ji-breaking weapon, to continuously squeeze the limits of his martial soul. Coupled with the iron rod that had been stacked for more than 50 times, his power had reached a terrifying level. If it hadn't been for the madness, the skill will make the pain disappear. I am afraid that Yu Yi has long lost consciousness and lost his fighting ability. The second soul skill, Fear of Gold Slash. The iron rod was raised from bottom to top, knocking Yu Yi off the ring. Seeing Yu Yi, who had fainted and lost his fighting ability, Li Fan breathed a sigh of relief, and knelt down on one knee as soon as his body went limp, but his eyes were full of joy. Li Fan! Li Fan! The students on the stage shouted loudly. Li Fei stood up, came to the ring with a slight jump, and helped Li Fan up. Brother, why are you here? Li Fan said with surprise. The Pope asked me to teach here for a year. Li Fei looked at the attention of the students around him and frowned slightly. Let's leave first. With some force on his feet, his whole body flew into the sky, and with a few clicks of air, Li Fei and Li Fan disappeared outside the ring. Brother, why does His Majesty the Pope want you to be a teacher? Li Fan asked curiously when he came to the dormitory. His Majesty the Pope wants to train his own team, so he asked me to come over and train a group of children with 9th level innate soul power, so that they can absorb the first ring beyond the limit so as to prepare for the future. Li Fei explained. Li Fan will still be at Wuhandian Academy in the next few years, so he will naturally not avoid contact with Juliana and others, and it will be okay to tell him. No wonder, the school's teaching methods have changed, students' assessments have become more difficult, and they have to go to the soul-hunting forest from time to participate in wild survival challenges. Many students have been injured or killed. Li Fan showed a look of surprise. This is a good thing. The world of soul masters is very cruel. If you can't even overcome this difficulty, how can you talk about becoming a strong man? You should go back and inherit the family business. In this world with extraordinary power, strength is respected, and if you don't have the consciousness to become a strong person, then going back and inheriting the family business is the best choice. Only by not easily getting involved in the Soul Master's environment can you survive. I know, brother, I have been prepared for a long time, Li Fan said firmly. In Li Fan's dormitory, Li Fei learned about his situation in Wuhan Academy. After finding that there was no problem, he left with peace of mind to find Juliana and others. Following the fluctuations of Juliana's soul power, Li Fei soon arrived at a classroom. The classroom was in a mess, with 15 students sitting there in disarray and having fun. Only 3 people led by Juliana occupied it. Sitting in the middle, the other students around were obviously afraid of the three of them and did not dare to get close. According to the information I have read, these people have become orphans for various reasons. They were all brought back from various parts of the Douluo continent by Bibi Dong's subordinates. They grew up in a brainwashing environment and are absolutely inseparable from Wuhun Palace, of loyalty. Everyone be quiet. Li Fei stood on the stage and shouted loudly. His soul power exploded instantly. 3 purple and black ultra-limited soul rings appeared. A violent coercion enveloped the entire classroom, making all the 15-year-old children. His face turned red and he looked at Li Fei quietly. Even Hu Liena, Xie Yu and Yan did not dare to speak, looking at Li Fei's unprecedented soul ring configuration in shock. Very good. Li Fei looked around, nodded with satisfaction, and put away his soul power. My name is Li Fei, 11 years old, level 37 Battle Soul Master, and I will be your guide for the next year. Teacher. Now everyone gathers at the mimicry training field. Hearing this, everyone immediately ran towards the mimicry training ground, and Huliena and the other 2 quickly followed. Bibi Dong has already made a greeting to the school, and he can mobilize all training resources. The mimic training ground has already reserved the largest area for this class. When he arrived at the mimicry training ground, Li Fei came in front of everyone and looked at them seriously. I was ordered by His Majesty the Pope to teach you for 1 year, but in the end there were only 7 places, so more than half of you will be. If you are eliminated, I will determine who will be eliminated based on your usual performance and future potential. Do you understand? Understood. Everyone became serious instantly. Li Fei came to the simulated environment control area and adjusted the environment to 1.5 times the gravity of the superimposed desert. He turned around and looked at Huliena and others with a smile on their faces, who were very uncomfortable due to gravity. Huliena, you took 14 of them to run around this desert. I didn't tell you to stop. No one can stop. Yes. Huliena gritted her teeth and started running around the beach first. The others immediately followed. The 0.5 times greater gravity than usual and the soft sand made every step they took very difficult. Mobilize your soul power, warm your heart and relieve your stress while running. Seeing everyone running stupidly, just passively mobilizing their soul power, Li Fei was helpless and reminded loudly. Huliena, Xie Yu and Yan were able to simply move their soul power through their meridians in just 3 minutes, but the others were much slower. The slowest one even took more than 10 minutes. Huliena and the other 3 are indeed the best among the golden generation of the future Wuhun Palace. Their understanding is much better than the others. Seeing that they had all entered the training state, Li Fei was not idle either. He also took advantage of the environment here to start practicing. He stood on the beach and waved his fists constantly. The muscles and bones of his body were constantly stirring, tempering every part of his body. After entering Soul Master, Li Fei's strength reached 1,200 kilograms. The weight of the 800-kilogram tungsten steel rod has a weight-bearing effect, but it no longer has much training effect. Now Li Fei uses it all the time. Use it as a weapon. Moreover, Li Fei also found that as his cultivation level increased, it became increasingly difficult to increase his physical fitness. According to his speculation, even if he reached the level of titled Douluo, his physical strength alone would only be 10,000 kilograms at most. On the contrary, as the soul power increases, the power that the soul power can explode becomes stronger and stronger. Taking the current Li Fei as an example, he can rely on the soul power to explode 4,000 kilograms of power, but this is only the power of the soul power. It wasn't his physical strength that allowed him to lift a 4,000 kilogram object. This also made him understand why titled Douluo could split mountains and seas one by one, but could not catch Tang San's 108,000 kilogram Poseidon trident, halberd. After understanding this, Li Fei felt a little unwilling. If he couldn't take advantage of his body's physical strength, what would he call his own martial soul? So Li Fei began to think of ways to create his own body training method. That is to rely on the indestructible and perfect state of the Vajra, use the muscle force of the random splitting wind hammer method to affect the soul power of each attribute to temper the body and soul, and then use the third soul skill perception to constantly feel the conditions in the body and make timely adjustments. Slowly create 3 postures of Junyu, 3 postures of Shug and 3 postures of flowing water. These 9 moves are not only a training method, but also Li Fei's self-created soul skill killer move. Let's not talk about the lethality, but the tempering of the body is far beyond the use of external force to exercise the body. At present, Li Fei is also very satisfied, and he is still continuously rely on perception skills to perfect these 9 postures. This is why Li Fei immediately agreed to teach Juliana and others when he heard that he could go to the treasure house to choose a soul bone. After all, the wisdom skull has a good blessing on mental power and thinking, allowing Li Fei to more clearly perceive the changes in the body. Perfect your own moves. What are you looking at? If you don't run away quickly, did I tell you to stop? Li Fei said in a cold voice when he felt Juliana and others stop and look at him. Juliana and the others shivered and quickly started running. Brother, I have already bought the things you asked me to buy. Half an hour later, Juliana and others' bodies had reached their limit. Li Fan walked in from the outside and took out all the things in the storage space. They were placed densely on the ground, filled with water and food. Xiao Fan, come here and help sort the food and water. These little guys will need it later. Li Fei greeted Li Fan, and the two quickly finished sorting the food and water. Li Fei also used his soul power to create a little wind, spreading the fragrance to Juliana and others. That guy, Juliana and others who smelled the fragrance gritted their teeth and looked at it, wishing they could eat Li Fei with their eyes. Ah, the last 2 children smelled the fragrance and fell directly on the beach. Their bodies that had reached the limit instantly felt an unprecedented sense of fatigue and soreness, making them unable to get up again. I don't care if I fall this time. If you can't hold on next time, go back to the ordinary class. Looking at the 2 people who fell, Li Fei had a cold look on his face. Xiaofan, go and pull these 2 people off. Bring them back and provide them with water and food. Li Fan walked over, grabbed the 2 of them one by one, and walked over with them. When Juliana and others saw this, they were shocked. They all concentrated on training, constantly squeezing the soul power in their bodies to warm their bodies and break through their own limits. After another half hour, Li Fei saw that Juliana and others' soul power had been completely consumed. Come here for a drink and a meal. After eating, take a 2-hour rest and then we'll continue training. Juliana and others immediately dragged their tired bodies to Li Fei's side, picked up the food on the table and started to eat. While we are eating, let me make it clear to you. Each of you only has one chance to make a mistake. If it happens a second time, go back to the regular class and don't waste time here. Hearing this, the 2 students who just fell down and couldn't get up looked ashamed. They were the only 2 out of 15 people left behind. Juliana and others were also very serious. They felt that Li Fei was not joking. Even if she couldn't persist, Li Fei would probably send her back to the ordinary class. In the following time, 2 months passed quickly. Li Fei's soul power increased by 1 level, reaching level 38. Juliana and others were also familiar with this extreme state of cultivation. They didn't need Li Fei every day. Start exercising on your own initiative without supervision. There are only 10 students left now, and 5 of them can no longer hold on and have been sent to the ordinary class. The remaining 10 people are at the top level in terms of temperament and qualifications. During this period, Li Fei also wandered around the school for a long time, but did not find a single soul owner. It is no wonder that during the Douluo period, the main body sects were all over the continent fighting for soul owners. The original martial spirit is very special. Most of the awakenings have little to do with the soul rings of the parents. No matter what kind of martial spirit the parents have, it is possible to awaken the martial spirit. Only a small number of them awaken because their parents also have the original martial spirit. It seems that if you want to establish the Numenon sect, you need to rely on Qian Runshui's power. When I arrive in the Tondo Empire a year later, I will ask him to help me collect people who have awakened the Numenon martial spirit in the Heaven Do Empire. It is best if they all come from remote villages. Quote. Sitting on the wall of the training ground, Li Fei began to think in his mind. Your Highness, why are you here? Feeling the familiar breath beside him, Li Fei turned around and asked curiously. Can't I come over and see you? Qian Runshui appeared, sat next to him, skillfully took Li Fei's arm, and asked slightly dangerously. How could it be? You can come and see me anytime, Li Fei said with a smile. After refining Yunwan's soul bone, I have been imitating the swan martial soul and changing the color of the soul ring. It took me 2 months to finally master the trick, so come here to see what's going on here. Qian Runshui, Juliana and others looked at the training in the distance and said in a calm voice. But Li Fei did hear a hint of tiredness in his voice, and he also understood that Qian Runshui didn't know how to deal with what happened during this period. There are still 10 months to go as an undercover agent. Take advantage of this time to accompany me in torturing these students and relax. Li Fei said with a smile, and pointed at Juliana in the distance. Teaching students. Looking at the young faces of Juliana and others, she thought of Li Fei and her own training. That's okay, practicing there is also training, and it can leave a little psychological shadow on her team, which is not bad. Then I'll go down and add some ingredients to them. Qian Runshui ducked to the simulated environment control area and directly added the sunlight function to the original environment, which instantly accelerated the physical loss of Juliana and others. The sudden change caused Juliana and the 10 people who were originally focused on running to instantly turn their attention to the mimic controller and see Qian Runshui. Who are you? Who asked you to touch that thing? Juliana asked quickly. You don't need to know who I am, you just need to know that I will also be your teacher from now on. Qian Runshui was very casual. In the next second, 4 purple and black soul rings exploded. The powerful soul power directly made Juliana and others unsteady. Don't fall behind, but don't forget that some of you have no chance. Li Fei reminded kindly. Juliana and others had to continue training under the pressure of Qian Runshui's soul power. Although the difficulty increased a lot, the effect was indeed very good, and the improvement speed of the 10 people also became much faster. In less than a month, Juliana and others improved a lot. Unfortunately, 3 people still couldn't stand it and were directly eliminated, leaving only 7 people, namely Juliana, Xie Yu, Yan, Sun Xuantao, Li Kai, Zhang Ping and Xu Yu, who were originally from the golden generation of Wuhun Hall. Everything was on track, and another 6 months had passed. Li Fei's soul power had successfully broken through to level 40, and he could hunt for soul rings. Shui, I will leave the training of Juliana and the others to you during this period. By the way, let Xiaofan come over to assist you. There shouldn't be any problems. At the gate of the college, Li Fei said with a hint of tenderness in his eyes that in order to prevent his identity from being exposed, his name for Qian Runshui also changed. If you really don't want Uncle Yu to help you hunt for soul rings, you really have to go alone. Qian Runshui looked at Li Fei worriedly and wanted to persuade him again. No, I have been in the Wuhun Palace these years and have never experienced a real life and death fight. I just want to take advantage of this opportunity to find the soul beast and practice for a while. Li Fei shook his head. Although his strength has been growing over the years and he has enough combat experience, he has never really fought. In this way, he may suffer a disadvantage or even lose his life when facing opponents of similar strength. He had long been aware of this problem, so he chose to go in alone to hunt for soul rings this time. Then be careful, I'll wait for you to come back. Don't worry, I will be back before you leave. I promised you to go to Tondo City with you. Li Fei showed a confident smile. I am leaving. After waving his hand, Li Fei ran out of Wuhun City and towards the Star Do Forest. Both the Tree of Life and the Blue Silver King are very rare, and it is very difficult to find them. Li Fei is ready to spend a long time in the Star Forest. After a week of traveling, Li Fei also successfully passed through Sodo City and entered the Star Forest. He used the mental exploration created by simulating the third soul skill to move carefully in the forest. No, if this continues, my mental energy will be completely exhausted, and it will be very dangerous in this environment. Feeling that most of his mental energy was consumed, Li Fei immediately turned off the detection and began to use his 5 senses to observe the threats hidden in the dark. It is indeed a paradise for soul beasts. There are so many types of soul beasts. As we go deeper, we can see more and more types of soul beasts, and their cultivation levels are getting stronger. We even saw many soul beasts that have just entered 10,000 years, but they are all ordinary soul beasts. Not suitable. How to find the Blue Silver King and the Tree of Life. The attack power of these 2 soul beasts is not high, so their hiding ability is first rate, and it is difficult to find them without a certain level. Sitting under a tree, Li Fei frowned, thinking about countermeasures. He had been there for a week, and he hadn't even found a hair on the Blue Silver King, let alone the Tree of Life, which had stronger vitality. He gently hit the ground with his hand, feeling like he hit something. This is blue-silver grass. Looking at the blue-silver grass that had been hammered flat, Li Fei thought of a way. The blue-silver grass and the blue-silver king have the same origin. Can he use it to locate the blue-silver grass by sensing the soul power and aura of the blue-silver grass? The position of the Silver King. The third soul skill. Perception. Just do it as you think of it. Use the third soul skill. Carefully feel the blue-silver grass next to the tree. A unique breath of life is clearly imprinted in your mind, although it is very weak, but it is very tenacious. As a 10,000-year soul ring, Li Fei's perception distance is centered on himself and spreads out 200 meters, which can be said to be extremely abnormal. After remembering the soul power characteristics of blue-silver grass, Li Fei began to wander continuously in the star forest. Everywhere he went, he released the third soul skill to sense whether there was a strong blue-silver grass in the area. I was obviously very careful, but this Wind Wolf King actually has spiritual attributes, and followed my spreading spiritual power to chase after me. Li Feizheng was injured and running at full speed in the star forest, dodging the wind blades behind him that were like heavy rain, followed by thousands of wind demon wolves. For 3 months, Li Fei searched for traces of the blue-silver king in the Star Do forest. He experienced many life and death battles, half of which were sneak attacks by other soul masters. He almost died once. Fortunately, the first soul, the powerful skills and second soul skills allowed Li Fei to save his life. This time, I finally felt a strong vitality through my perception skills, but I didn't expect to be surrounded and suppressed by the wind demon wolf. If it weren't for the 200-meter sensing range, Li Fei would have been torn apart by a pack of wolves in an instant, which was far more thrilling than any previous battle. No, we must kill the Wolf King. If this continues, I will definitely be surrounded by wolves. Li Fei frowned as he looked at the approaching 1,000-year wind demon wolf. As a wind-attributed soul beast, the wind demon wolf was not only extremely fast, but also had very powerful attack power. Li Fei's injuries were caused by them. Suppress the leather and cut the wind. He turned around in the air and avoided the bite of the gale demonic wolf. He raised his sword fingers with his right hands and continued to exhale the metallic soul power. He swiped at the gale demonic wolf in the air and a golden sword energy flashed past, directly killing it. The head was chopped off. Continuing to attack at full speed, Li Fei began to look for a suitable place and time to counterattack, as long as he had a chance to approach the Gale Wolf King and kill him. The woods in the area on the left are so dense, they can just limit the movement of the wolves. With a glance, Li Fei saw that the trees on the left were much denser than the rest. The gaps between the trees were even less than 1 meter, which was just right for a battlefield. Turning his body and relying on the resilience of the trees, Li Fei rushed into the woods on the left. Very good, follow me. Seeing the Gale Demon Wolf group following him, Li Fei smiled proudly and began to shuttle quickly through the forest. Seeing that the Gale Demon Wolf circle had entered more than half of the forest, he immediately turned around and rushed towards the Gale Wolf King, using the tops of trees to avoid the Gale Demon Wolf below. The wolf attacked, and after a few jumps, he jumped directly towards the Gale Wolf King with the help of a thick tree. Woo! The Gale Wolf King looked up to the sky and roared. The dozen or so nearly 10,000-year-old Gale Demon Wolf guards around him gathered their wind attribute soul power. When they opened their mouths, hundreds of wind blades spurted out, densely covering the entire sky and slashing towards Li Fei. What a smart Wolf King! He actually knows that it's difficult for people to move in the air, so he just wants to kill me from the air. Unfortunately, I'm not among those you know. Li Fei was a little surprised when he saw the wind blade attacking him. Immediately, his soul power was running at high speed in his body, and 3 purple and black soul rings appeared. The third soul skill, Perception. Second soul skill, Vajra is indestructible. Moonstep. Instantly activating the 2 major soul skills, Li Fei's whole body turned into dark gold. He could sense the trajectory of each wind blade with his mental power, all of which were clearly visible. With the soul power under his feet, Li Fei started running in the air, avoiding the big enemies. Part of the wind blade, but still part of the wind blade fell on him. However, with the blessing of the indestructible Vajra, Li Fei's defense was not broken, allowing him to reach above the Gale Wolf King smoothly. Woo! The Gale Wolf King roared and shot several meters long wind blades towards Li Fei. Go to hell! The trajectories of several wind blades flashed through his mind, and he stepped on the steps to avoid the wind blades. He turned around, and a Beiji revolver appeared in his hand, aiming at the head of the Gale Wolf King. Bang, bang, sparks flickered from the muzzle, soul power exploded, and 6 shots were fired in succession. 6 silver bullets entered the head of the Gale Wolf King, directly shattering it. Li Fei once again used the power of Yubu to distance himself from the wolves, and fled into the distance. The soul power version of Moon Step consumes a lot of soul power. The 20 steps just now almost drained my soul power. After landing on a big tree to hide his figure, Li Fei began to breathe heavily, observing the situation of the wolves through the gaps in the leaves, while filling bullets into the Blatilla striata with his hands. The Gale Wolf King died, and the wolves were leaderless and began to flee in all directions. Soon there were no living creatures near the Wolf King. That's a soul bone. After the wolves dispersed, Li Fei could clearly see the body of the Wolf King. Next to the black soul ring was a small bone fragment similar to a leg bone, emitting a faint blue light. He didn't need the spirit ring of the Gale Wolf King, but he had to put away this nearly 30,000-year-old leg bone. While the threat of the wolves was still there and there were no other spirit beasts nearby, Li Fei quickened his steps and headed towards the Wolf King ran. It's indeed a soul bone. I didn't expect there would be an unexpected harvest this time. Holding the soul bone in his hand, Li Fei's eyes showed joy. He quickly put it into his storage bracelet and ran towards the distance. The bloody smell of the body of the Gale Wolf King would definitely attract the covetousness of the bloodthirsty soul beast, so he had better leave quickly, as well. After running nearly 10,000 meters, Li Fei hid in a tree hole and blocked the entrance with leaves before resting to recover his lost physical and soul power. After regaining his condition, Li Fei touched the location where he had sensed the powerful blue-silver grass before and headed inside. As he went deeper, there were more and more blue-silver grasses around him, and they became stronger and stronger. There was a peaceful and tranquil atmosphere in the forest, and Li Fei knew that he was in the right place. There are many blue-silver grass soul beasts, including 3 blue-silver kings with silver patterns. They are all very suitable for me. Arriving at the core area, Li Fei did not move forward rashly. Even if the blue-silver king was not good at attacking, so many people gathered together and it would be difficult to control them. Otherwise, the blue-silver grass would not be able to occupy such a territory in the Stardow forest. Since it is grass, it must be afraid of fire. With a smile, Li Fei took out some spirits from his storage bracelet and threw them directly on the large piece of blue-silver grass in front of him. Then he flicked his fingers, and a spark fell into the spirits, and the fire immediately started burning. Chapter 41. The flames are just to block the entanglement of the blue-silver grass branches and leaves. The purpose is to give me a chance to pull out the blue-silver king with one blow. Seeing that no soul ring appeared, Li Fei knew that he wanted to burn the blue-silver grass with its roots deep into the ground with flames alone, but the power of the flames was enough. Second soul skill. Vajra is indestructible. His body turned into a dark golden color, and he displayed his shave. He immediately reached the nearest blue-silver king, punched out, and hit the ground. His soul power was swallowed up, and strange power exploded in an instant, causing the whole ground to crack instantly. Li Fei directly grabbed the blue-silver king, uprooted it and ran towards the outside of the blue-silver grass area. The blue-silver king in his hand stretched out hundreds of roots and branches and wrapped them around Li Fei, trying to restrict Li Fei's movements. The blue-silver grass soul beasts on the ground also began to explode their soul power, stretching out their branches and leaves in an attempt to restrict Li Fei's movements. To catch Li Fei. I came prepared. The storage bracelet flashed, and several grenades appeared in the hand, and were thrown directly into the blue-silver grass area. A violent explosion sounded, and more than a dozen blue-silver grasses turned into fly ash. Suddenly, more than a dozen yellow and purple grenades the soul ring floated out. With the cover of the grenade, Li Fei also successfully escaped from the area where the blue-silver grass soul beasts lived, but he was also entangled tightly with the blue-silver king in his hand, making it very difficult to move. Now that we have left the blue-silver grass area, there is no need to retain the soul power. Sugage golden light. The muscles all over the body were tense, and the soul power was running at high speed in the body. Golden lights began to appear on the surface of the dark golden skin, exploding in all directions. The violent energy directly tore the blue-silver king on his body inch by inch, and fell to the ground, leaving only the roots. Must still be in Li Fei's hand. This is not dead, it is indeed a soul beast that represents life. Li Fei was very surprised when he looked at the blue-silver king's roots, which still had tenacious vitality and were still squirming. This vitality was not much worse than that of the blue-silver king in its heyday. The roots were still growing new branches and leaves, entwining towards Li Fei's body. There was no way. Li Fei frowned slightly, and once again exploded with metallic soul power in his hand to smash the newly grown branches and leaves. I need to find a safe place to absorb the soul ring as soon as possible. It's too dangerous here. Instead of destroying the roots of the blue-silver king, Li Fei began to run towards the tree hole where he was hiding while constantly destroying the newly grown branches and leaves of the blue-silver king. He quickly returned to the previous tree hole, and sprinkled powders of various materials that soul beasts hated outside. After sensing that there was no danger around, he entered the tree hole and sealed the hole with tree bark. No flaw could be seen from the outside. Then he used the metallic soul power to smash the blue-silver king's roots into pieces. A black soul ring landed in the tree hole, and Li Fei quickly sat down cross-legged, pulling the soul ring and began to absorb it. As the soul ring was put on his body, a stream of gentle and vital soul power began to flow into his body. The phantom of the blue-silver king also appeared in the spiritual world, and began to continuously collide with Li Fei's soul. However, the blue-silver king was born with a gentle personality and was not good at fighting, even if he was a remnant soul. He wanted to attack Li Fei, but was refined bit by Li Fei's soul, strengthening his own foundation. 3 hours passed quickly, and Li Fei slowly opened his eyes, looking down at the newly appeared fourth soul ring, with joy in his eyes. Sure enough, my guess is correct. The blue-silver king has given me a life-related soul skill. This 20,000-year-old blue-silver king has given me a self-healing soul skill. Even if I don't actively turn on my self-healing ability, it will be very powerful. Powerful, all the wounds caused by the wind demon wolf have been recovered, and the hidden wounds left over from training since childhood have also recovered. At this time, Li Fei felt that his body was unusually relaxed, as if the shackles had been removed. Even the speed of soul power in the body had accelerated a lot, and his whole body was emitting a faint blue light. As the blue-silver king's soul ring was absorbed, the trajectory of the soul power in Li Fei's body also began to change. Except for the Ren and Du meridians, all the remaining 8 meridians had been opened. The soul power in the body can barely form a circulation. The liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys have begun to become stronger under the warmth and nourishment of the soul power of each attribute. Even the heart has become a lot stronger in the process of the 5 elements. Keep up the rhythm. Next is the heart, which is the key to explosive power. This soul ring must be chosen carefully. With his own martial soul and the power of his third soul skill perception, Li Fei could clearly sense the condition of his body. The cycle of the 5 elements had barely been formed, but due to the lack of fire attribute soul rings, his heart was weaker than the other 5 internal organs. But it is precisely because of this that Li Fei understands that it is feasible to use the 5 elements soul ring to build circulation in the body. When the fire attribute soul beast is successfully absorbed, he will have extremely terrifying explosive power, and it is feasible to fight beyond the stage. The most important thing is that the circulation of the 5 internal organs is formed. The 5 internal organs become stronger and the efficiency of tempering the body becomes higher, which can steadily increase one's own strength. This is another point that Li Fei is interested in. It's time to go back. It's been more than 3 months. If I don't go back, my mother will be worried. Recalling his mother's expression when she was furious, Li Fei shivered unconsciously. He activated his third soul skill and sensed that there were no dangerous soul beasts or humans within 200 meters around him. The hole came out. Because he went deep into the forest to look for blue-silver grass, Li Fei's position had already shifted. He took out the map and looked at the direction, then walked towards Barak City. With his perception skills, he easily bypassed the dangerous area, and soon arrived at the outskirts of the Douluo forest. Why is there the smell of blood in the air? Not long after he left the forest, Li Fei's nose twitched slightly, and a faint smell of blood rushed straight to his forehead. Having killed several soul masters in the forest and the 5 senses brought by his own martial soul, he instantly understood that this was a human being. The taste of blood. Originally, Li Fei didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but the direction from which the smell of blood came was the only way for him to go to Barak City. If he took a detour, it would take several more days. Carefully proceeding in the direction where the smell of blood came from, within half an hour, Li Fei saw a burning village, and screams could be heard from time to time. Li Fei frowned and slowly touched it, past. When he came to the ruins to hide his figure, Li Fei instantly turned around and looked into the village. He saw a young man wearing Chinese clothes, with a pair of bat wings on his back and an evil smile on his face, placing his hand on a strong man. The heads of the villagers were surrounded by 5 optimally configured soul rings. In less than a minute, the villagers who were suspected of being soul masters turned into mummies and were thrown aside, where hundreds of corpses were piled up. The corpses had expressions of fear, pain, and hatred on their faces, making them look very terrifying. The most important thing was that there were many corpses of children inside. There were 12 soldiers wearing dark red armor next to them. Their faces were full of indifference, watching everything happen with cold eyes. This is the evil soul master and Balak's army. Recognizing the general identities of these people in an instant, Li Fei's eyes were instantly filled with murderous intent, and an unprecedented anger arose in his heart. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill all these unscrupulous guys in front of him. When he was still in Xi'an City, he heard that in some remote villages near the Balak Kingdom, massacres of evil soul masters annihilating villages occurred from time to time. Originally, he thought he could accept it. Isn't it normal for people to die in the world of soul masters? But when I actually saw this purgatory-like scene, the self-deceptive comfort disappeared instantly, and I gained a new understanding of the world. The conscience buried deep in the heart of modern people was instantly awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and a tungsten steel rod appeared in his hand. His soul power began to explode. 4 purple, and black soul rings appeared instantly, all blooming with a coquettish light, walked slowly towards the village square. The 12 soldiers on guard immediately noticed someone approaching, and they all clenched their spears and turned in Li Fei's direction. What? It turns out there is something that slipped through the net, just let me. The young man naturally heard the noise and said contemptuously, turning his head to look in the direction of Li Fei. His whole person was stunned in place for an instant, in disbelief. What kind of soul ring configuration is this? You deserve to die. Second soul skill. Vajra is indestructible. Li Fei's eyes were fixed on the young man, with pure murderous intent and a trace of hidden meaning. The soul power in his eyes continued to flow, exuding golden light, and his whole body turned golden. He bowed and turned into a golden afterimage. Rushed towards the young man. Kill. The captain of Team Balak was also shocked by Li Fei's soul ring configuration, but the current situation could not allow him to be surprised. He immediately shouted, and the 12 people immediately set up a battle formation. Bye Huang, and other soul rings appeared instantly. 3 people formed a group, 2 shields and 1 gun combined to form 4 groups, and they launched a charge towards Li Fei. Facing the Barak team composed entirely of soul masters, Li Fei didn't want to say a word. The soul power under his feet exploded, and his speed increased again. In the blink of an eye, he was on one of the groups, raised the tungsten steel rod high, and swung it down with all his strength. Junyu broken rock. A thick soul power wrapped around the tungsten steel rod, exuding a heavy aura, and hit the shield heavily. A powerful force exploded, and the shield made of fine steel shattered instantly, and the flying fragments knocked the 3 people away. One of the unlucky guys had his throat cut directly by the fragments running down his neck, and died on the spot. Now, after the 4th soul skill, Li Fei has a physical strength of 1,600 kilograms, and the burst of soul power has reached an astonishing 6,000 kilograms. Coupled with the 800 kilograms of tungsten steel rod and the explosion of moves, he can do it with all his strength. The weight of the stick weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. What? The young man and the remaining soldiers showed surprised expressions. They did not expect that Li Fei would kill his own group with one blow. Li Fei didn't care about the expressions of the few people, and hit the 2 sticks again, shocking the 2 people lying on the ground to death. Their bodies turned into afterimages and continued to rush towards the young people. 3rd soul skill. Heavy bat shadow. After the blow just now, the young man understood that if he didn't take action, when his troops were killed, he would not have the confidence to face Li Fei alone, so he took action with the third soul skill, and the figure turned into 3, and then into 3. Afterimage cooperated with 3 groups to attack Li Fei from 3 directions. It turns out to be a vampire bat spirit, no wonder. The third soul skill, perception. His mental power was fully stimulated, and the young man's true body was invisible to the senses. Li Fei's soul power surged, and his figure turned around a few times to dodge all the attacks. He reached the middle of several people, and then the metallic soul power continued of cohesion. Suppress the leather and cut the wind. With an extremely simple round dance stick, it swept 360 degrees. The golden sword energy spread out instantly, and several soldiers who couldn't dodge were cut in half. However, the movement of this move was too large, giving the captain and the young man a chance to attack. The captain used his second soul skill instantly, and the spear in his hand emitted a glistening white light and pierced Li Fei's chest directly. The young man also directly used his fifth soul skill. Hundreds of bloody bats surrounded Li Fei from all directions and began to bite him. Iron. Li Fei's muscles all over his body twitched, and then contracted instantly. His entire skin tightened, and black light continued to surge from it. Chang. The tip of the gun pierced Li Fei's chest, and the sound of metal clashing was heard. The gun body also bent under the huge force. The bites of hundreds of bloody bats had no effect at all, and they only tore Li Fei's clothes into pieces. Such a strong defense. Is he a defensive soul master? The captain was shocked and tried to get away with his feet, but it was already too late. Li Fei showed a smile of success, holding the gun in front of him with his right hand, and hit the captain's head with a backhand stick with his left hand. The powerful force directly caused his dark red helmet to twist. The captain's 7 orifices were bleeding, his expression was distorted and he fell down. It's you next. Holding a gun in one hand and a stick in the other, Li Fei had a bloodthirsty expression on his face, which frightened the young man and the remaining 5 soldiers and took a step back. The use of the 360-degree sweep just now was not Li Fei's mistake, but was done deliberately. The purpose was to attract the strongest young people and captains to attack him, so as to seize the opportunity to eliminate one of them. Li Fei's second soul skill's improved defense is very strong. Coupled with the skill of Iron Block, the defense power is even higher. The 2 of them have a second-level Soul Master and an Agility Attack System Soul Master. Their attack power is not high. He is confident that he can defend against the 2 attacks. The young man was obviously a young man. He had never experienced anything like this before. He just left a few soldiers behind, turned around and flew into the sky. I want to run away. How is that possible? Lu Shui Poison Dragon Diamond. Seeing the young man running away, Li Fei made an action of throwing a javelin. The black water attribute soul power wrapped around the spear and threw it hard. The spear rotated at high speed and turned into a black lightning, which directly penetrated the young man's shoulder and through it. It was nailed to a house that was burning with fire. Ah! Intense pain coupled with high temperature burning, the young man kept screaming and twisting his body, but the more he twisted the pierced shoulder, the more painful it became. Run away. When the 5 soldiers saw the situation, they turned around and ran away. Li Fei instantly took out Beiji. Bang! Bang! 5 gunshots ended the lives of these soldiers. Don't kill me. My father is the Prince of Balak and the king's brother. He is also related to Emperor Shui. If you kill me, the kingdom of Balak and the Tondo Empire will not let you go. Seeing Li Fei walking slowly, the young man endured the pain and began to threaten Li Fei. Don't worry, I won't kill you, Li Fei said with a smile. Really? The young man had a look of surprise on his face. He thought his threat was effective and thought about how to go back and find someone to torture the guy in front of him. Wouldn't it be too easy to kill you directly? I will make your life worse than death. Li Fei showed a cruel smile. What do you want to do? The young man showed a horrified expression and stammered, but. Kun Mujin, I am Prince Barak's most beloved son. Li Fei's fingers turned into sword fingers, and with a slight stroke, 4 sword lights flashed through, and all the tendons of Kun Mujin's limbs were severed. The sword light flashed again, piercing his dantian, and directly destroyed him. Ah, let me go. Kun Mujin instantly felt weak all over, unable to move his limbs, and begged for mercy in a very miserable voice. Li Fei turned a deaf ear and had no reaction, letting Kun Mujin be burned by the fire. He found a shovel from a nearby villager's house, walked to the middle of the village square, and started digging a hole. In the face of the huge force, he quickly dug a large pit 10 meters deep. He turned around and neatly placed the mummies of the villagers into the pit one by one. Then he lifted it hard and pushed all the mounds of soil next to it in. They filled it up and made a simple grave. He found 2 pieces of wood from a nearby house that was not on fire, tied them into a huge cross in front of the square, and then tied Kun Mujin, who was too weak to speak, directly to it. You are really being advantaged. He took out 5 grenades from the storage bracelet and used some of the excitation devices he learned to make with soul guidance to make 5 traps on Kun Mujin. As long as someone tried to remove them, the grenades would explode, killing everyone around him. Still feeling a bit unsafe, Li Fei buried 13 more grenades under the cross, which would trigger a series of explosions and cause everyone who came to suffer. Li Fei made several more wounds on Kun Mujin's body and cut out his tongue. In this way, no one would know about him unless he was a spiritual soul master. Moreover, if no one came over, this guy would eventually die of excessive blood loss. He also cut off the heads of 12 soldiers and built a head grave in front of the grave. After doing all this, Li Fei stood in front of the grave and began to mutter to himself. I have avenged you. Although I don't know you, this incident has given me a deeper understanding of the world and its cruelty. I also hope that you will not be born in such a deformed world in your next life. Quote, I can't change anything for the time being, but when I get to a certain level and have the power to change the world, I will definitely make changes to the world, at least so that ordinary people can survive in this world instead of being like now just because of the selfish desires of an evil soul master. An entire village is being massacred. Quote. After muttering to himself for 10 minutes in front of the grave, Li Fei was ready to leave. He used Moon Step to fly from the air in the direction of Xi'an City, and did not choose to go to Barak City. After flying 5,000 meters with the Moon Step, Li Fei only had a trace of soul power left in his body before he landed on the tree. He used his body's power to jump between the trees, leaving as few traces as possible. As the sun set, the sky was burning with endless fire clouds, and Li Fei finally arrived at Xi'an City. Using his familiarity with the city, Li Fei entered Xi'an City without alerting the guards, found a high-end hotel, and booked a room. At the Rose Hotel in Xi'an City, Li Fei took a shower, lay on the big bed, and took out the soul bone exploded by the Gale Wolf King from the storage bracelet. This is the speed leg bone of chasing the wind. It is nearly 30,000 years old. The attached skill is that it can raise the wind blade, which is considered a small masterpiece. It's a pity that plant-based soul beasts basically didn't explode soul bones 100,000 years ago. Otherwise, if I tortured the Blue Silver King just like that, I would explode a soul bone anyway. After throwing the soul bone into the storage bracelet, Li Fei began to sleep. He planned not to absorb this soul bone for now. The soul bone is more important than the soul ring. If you absorb it, you must be careful to see if there is any more in the future. If you don't have better soul bones, it's not too late to absorb them. Have you heard? The evil soul master Kun Mujin, the son of Prince Kun Shicheng, met yesterday and was nailed to a cross in a village. He died in a miserable state. Not only that, I heard that Prince Kun Shicheng was killed by the evil soul master's weapon hidden on the body when he was recovering his son's body. Now King Kundla has ordered everyone to look for the thief. What a joy! The Barak royal family has been oppressing us people by relying on its control of the army, and now it finally gets its retribution. Stop talking, the soldiers are coming. Li Fei walked on the street, listening to the words of the people around him, and a flash of wonder flashed in his eyes. Unexpectedly, he had an unexpected gain, and he actually blew up Prince Barak to death. Soon he arrived at the gate of the city. There were many times more soldiers than usual doing interrogations. He took out the papal decree and showed it to the soldiers at the gate. Li Fei left Xi'an City easily, and then took a car and walked towards Wuhun City. Inside Wuhun Academy, Qian Runshui sat on the wall, with the sacred flames in her hands constantly changing into various shapes. She looked up in the direction of the Stardo forest, her eyes full of worry. Sister Shui, are you thinking about teacher Li Fei again? Don't worry, he is so powerful and he will be fine. Juliana climbed onto the wall and looked at Qian Runshui and comforted her. But it's been 3 months, what kind of soul beast has taken him so long without success? Qian Runshui said worriedly. Sister Shui, I know this. It's the blue silver grass or the tree of life. It's not a soul beast that can be found easily. It's normal for it to take some time. Li Fan came over and comforted him. Although he was also worried, he has absolute confidence in Li Fei. What? Blue silver grass? Isn't blue silver grass just a weed? There are actually soul rings produced. Juliana asked with a confused look on her face. She was also a top student in cultural classes, and she also learned a lot during this time. There is a lot of knowledge about soul beasts, but I have never seen an introduction to the blue silver grass soul beast in a book. I don't know about this, but my brother highly praises the blue silver grass soul beast, saying that it is one of the best soul ring configurations for plant-type martial souls. It is very powerful. Li Fan shook his head and explained. Nana, why don't you hurry up and train? What are you doing here? Qian Runshui, who had calmed down a bit, said coldly. Aren't they worried about you? Juliana said loudly. She didn't dare to make a mistake and ran towards the team in the distance. Qian Runshui was much more ruthless than Li Fei during training. She did all kinds of strange things. There was a lot of punishment, and she didn't want to be punished. Li Fei, I believe you can come back. Looking in the direction of the Stardo forest, Qian Runshui also flew down from the wall, urging Juliana and others to train. Brother, I believe you. Li Fan glanced at the sky, with longing in his eyes. After a week of traveling, Li Fei finally returned to Wuhun City from Sodo City. Mom, I'm back. As soon as he entered the house, Li Fei shouted excitedly and walked quickly towards the back room. He had not seen his family for more than 3 months and he missed his family very much. Fair, you're really worried about me. Zhang Xin quickly rushed out of the back room and hugged Li Fei with a happy face. Ever since she knew that Li Fei was going to the Stardo forest alone, she had been worried and afraid that something would happen to Li Fei. Now that I see Li Fei coming back, I finally feel relieved. Mom, am I back now? And I'm not hurt at all. Li Fei quickly comforted him, and after speaking, he patted his body gently a few times to show that he was fine. Just come back. Li Ming also walked out and gently patted Li Fei on the shoulder. Dad, thank you for your support. I have successfully obtained the 4th soul ring and become a 40-level soul sect. Li Fei looked at Li Ming and said with pride. At the same time, 4 purple and black soul rings lit up and were displayed. Li Fei had discussed this trip with Li Ming beforehand. Although it was very dangerous, Li Ming also looked worried, but he still supported Li Fei's decision and let him go to the Star Forest alone. Okay. Li Ming looked at the 4 soul rings excitedly, and his heart was filled with pride. This was his son, a genius he had never seen before. Let's go, Fair. Mom will make you something to eat. Zhang Xin pulled Li Fei and Li Ming towards the living room. After Li Fei and Li Ming sat down, she went to cook. Li Fei told Li Ming what happened in the Stardo forest without hiding too much. Except for the fact that he was almost killed by an offensive spirit master and the evil spirit master, the rest was very clearly told to Li Bright. After eating with his family, Li Fei walked towards Wuhun Academy and went to Yiren Cake Shop to buy some strawberry cakes. Shui, I'm back as promised. Qian Runshui, who was supervising the training of Juliana's 7 people, heard the voice coming from behind. His whole body froze, and he slowly turned around to see the familiar figure. Li Fei, you're back. Yeah, I didn't forget my promise to accompany you to the Tondo Empire. Li Fei smiled, walked slowly to Qian Runshui's side, and patted her shoulder. As long as you haven't forgotten. Qian Runshui smiled brightly. This smile directly made Xiaoyu and other boys who were practicing in the distance become a little distracted and couldn't help but stop practicing. What are you doing here? Do you want to eliminate them all? Li Fei's face suddenly turned cold and he said in a cold tone. Xiaoyu and others trembled and immediately started running. Juliana in front had an ugly face. When Xiaoyu caught up, she stepped on Xiaoyu's feet, then snorted coldly and ran to the front. Now Juliana, Xiaoyu and Yan should be able to absorb 800 years of soul rings depending on the situation. Sun Xuantao and the other 4 are just a little short, about 700 years, unable to reach the 1000-year first ring like the 2 of us. Qian Runshui looking at Juliana and the other 7, they sighed. 800 years is enough. The agreement between me and the Pope has been completed. As for how high they can reach in the future, they can only look at themselves. Li Fei was not surprised at all. It took him 4 years of training with his own martial soul to successfully reach the first level of 1,000 years. Juliana only took 1 year, so someone who can reach 800 years is already an extremely talented person. Tomorrow I will go to see His Majesty the Pope and hand over Juliana and others to her. Then we will be ready to go to the Tondo Empire. Good. Hearing this, Qian Runshui nodded happily. After Li Fei confirmed that Juliana and others were fine through soul power pressure, he asked Juliana and others to go back to rest and prepare for hunting soul beasts. The two sat on the wall. Li Fei told Qian Runshui about his encounter with the evil soul master, and detailed the tragedy caused by the evil soul master. Barak Kingdom. Evil soul master. When I am strong enough, I will turn them into ashes with the sacred fire. Qian Runshui gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with anger. After hearing that the evil soul master didn't even let go of the baby over time, her anger reached its peak. The seraph's martial soul instantly possessed him, his soul power began to explode, and the sacred aura was extremely strong. Shui, calm down. Li Fei grabbed Qian Runshui's shoulders and comforted her mentally. Li Fei, what do you think? Qian Runshui asked with a cold face. Shui, I want to change the world when I am strong enough to change the world. Li Fei looked up at the sky and adjusted some of the governance concepts and policies of the earth in his previous life based on the situation in the Douluo world. Then the two of us will work together to change this sick world and recreate the world in your mouth. Qian Runshui held Li Fei's hand tightly and said firmly. Good. Li Fei looked at Qian Runshui for a while, and then said with determination, he believed that with the help of the future angel god, coupled with his own plan, the world would definitely change. The next day, early in the morning, after tidying up his clothes, Li Fei walked towards the Pope's palace. His Majesty the Pope, the 1-year period has come, and I have completed your mission. Looking at Bibi Dong above, Li Fei knelt down on one knee and saluted. Very good. Bibi Dong stood up slightly excitedly. As the candidate she chose, Juliana will naturally be stronger in the future. She threw a token in front of Li Fei, this is specially for entering the treasure house. With the token, you can go to the treasure house and choose a soul bone as a reward. Thank you, His Majesty the Pope. Li Fei immediately thanked him, picked up the token, and exited the Wuhun Palace. He walked towards the treasure house and handed the token to the elder guarding the pavilion. He waited until the elder gatekeeper injected soul power into it one after another, untied the magic circle, and handed the token. After returning it to him, he slowly walked in. After entering the treasure house, Li Fei's eyes hurt from the various streams of light. Just by scanning, he saw more than a dozen soul bones floating in the counter, and a large number of precious metals and medicinal materials were thrown aside like garbage, and even saw a few soul cannons. I feel even more regretful in my heart. If these soul cannons are used as research materials, the layout of the continent will definitely not be what it is now. After all, in this continent, there are still mostly ordinary people. As expected of the Wuhun Palace, the strongest organization in the mainland. Just these soul bones and medicinal materials, you can see that its background is amazing. Li Fei looked surprised, but he also knew that medicinal materials and metals could be given to them at will, but not soul bones. These soul bones were the guarantee for Wuhun Palace to recruit titled Douluo and would not be given easily. Every time a soul bone is given, a meeting of elders must be held, and half of the elders must agree. He understood that this time he was exposed to the light of the trans-limit theory, and he might need to be manipulated by Qian Douluo in order to successfully obtain a soul bone. Li Fei just glanced at the outer soul bones. Most of the soul bones here were less than 30,000 years old, and they were all arm bones and leg bones. They were not his target. He continued to walk inside, and as he went deeper, there are also several precious trunk bones and skulls, and there are 300,000-year soul bones in the innermost part. His eyes reluctantly moved away from the 300,000-year-old soul bones. Those soul bones were all leg bones and arm bones, and they were not suitable. He slowly walked towards the skull that was emitting a bright blue light. Under the cabinet of the skull was written, "The skull contains the wisdom of spiritual condensation." Putting the token on the cover, the formation on it instantly dissipated, revealing the skull inside. Holding it in his hand, Li Feikai breathed a sigh of relief, then walked out of the treasure house and showed the skull in his hand to the elder guarding the pavilion. Good taste. This soul bone is one of the real treasures in this treasure house. The elder guarding the pavilion said in surprise. It's also luck, elder, I'll leave first. Li Fei smiled and bowed slightly to the elder, and then walked towards the back of the enshrinement hall. With his current cultivation level, it would take a long time to refine the soul bones, so it would be safer to stay in Qian Daoliu's residence. He has met Qian Daoliu several times over the years. Basically, he accompanied Qian Runshui to learn about martial arts and cultivation. Because of Qian Runshui's relationship, the two of them knew each other, and it was best to refine them there. I've seen a big offering. Junior, I want to refine soul bones here, is it possible? Entering the villa, Li Fei saw Qian Daoliu drinking tea and Qian Runshui studying royal knowledge on the table in the distance, and immediately stepped forward to salute. Yeah, Qian Daoliu nodded, knowing it. Seeing that Qian Daoliu agreed, Li Fei smiled at Qian Runshui, then walked to an open space, took out the wisdom skull, and started refining it. As the wisdom skull came close to Li Fei's forehead, it turned into a shadow and got in. Li Fei felt like he was wrapped in a cool ocean, and his soul seemed to be separated from his body. All he could feel was this coolness, and nothing else. Arrive. Blue fluorescence hovered above Li Fei's head, constantly scattering various light spots and integrating into Li Fei's body. Grandpa, when do you think Li Fei will wake up? Looking at Li Fei, whose eyes were still closed for most of the day, Qian Runshui asked doubtfully. Shui, you forgot that it took you 5 days to refine Yunwan's soul bone. The quality of this wisdom soul bone is slightly inferior to Yunwan's skull. With Li Fei's mental power, it still takes 3 days. Qian Daoliu said with a smile. Oh, Qian Runshui nodded and continued to read the book about the royal family. As the skull was refined a little bit, Li Fei could feel hundreds of silver light spots appearing in his sea of consciousness, like stars in the sky, and the number was still increasing. He could also feel the benefits of this soul bone, his thinking could speed up, and he began to actively condense his mental power into silver light spots. As the number of light spots increased, the silver light spots gathered together, like an illusory river that began to rush and flow in the mind. Well, his mental power has actually reached the level of Contra. Maybe he will really become Shui's right-hand man in the future. Qian Daoliu thought with some surprise. In just 3 days, his mental power relied on one person. The soul bone reached the Contra level, which he had never heard of before. Even though he was the successor of Angel Bakao, he only had the spiritual power of Contra when he was the 6th ring soul emperor, and some of his original opinions about Li Fei disappeared. Li Fei, who felt his soul return to his body, felt that the whole world had become different, with a clear sense of hierarchy, and he could clearly see the essence. At the same time, he also understood the skill that the soul bone brought to him, insight. This is the original skill of the wisdom skull. It allows me to see everything clearly, and it also has a spiritual attack. Not bad, not bad. Insight is a very practical skill, and it also comes with mental attacks. Coupled with the third soul skill perception, the mental means are almost complete, and Li Fei is very satisfied with this. Opening his eyes, Li Fei found that Qian Runshui was not there, only Qian Daoliu was sitting on the sofa drinking tea and looking at him with a smile on his face. Thank you for the great sacrifice. Li Fei stood up and said respectfully. You are very good. You are qualified to stay by Shui's side. Qian Daoliu looked at Li Fei with a majestic look on his face and said with satisfaction, I heard from Shui that you are also going to the Tondo Empire this time. Yes, Grand Priest, His Highness and I have agreed to arrive in the Tondo Empire to assist her in her undercover mission. It seems that she really trusts you. She even told you about the undercover mission. Even Sister Ying, who has been taking care of her, doesn't know about it. Qian Daoliu was a little surprised. He looked up and down and continued. This when Shui goes to the Tondo Empire, there won't be many people around her, so I hope you can protect her. Junior must do his best. Li Fei said seriously. Okay, Shui is preparing things for undercover. You should also go back and prepare. We will meet at the gate of Wuhun City at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Qian Daoliu handed an envelope to Li Fei and waved his hand. Yes, comma. The next day, Li Fei came to the door early and waited. He had already agreed with his parents, Xiaofan, that he would not be able to contact his family during his arrival in Tondo Empire. Even if they saw him in Tondo City, they would not say hello immediately. He discovered from the envelope the new identity Qian Daoliu had prepared for him, the son of a declining nobleman from the border area, and a letter of introduction to the Tondo Royal Academy. No need to think about it, he will also work as an undercover agent next, using his new identity to help Qian Runshui control the Tondo Empire, and all the information about his time in Wuhun City will be erased. Soon Qian Daoliu came over with Qian Runshui, and Sister Ying followed behind, pulling 3 black scale horses. This was the means of transportation for him and Qian Runshui. Go, Shui. Qian Daoliu turned around and handed the reins of the black-scaled horse to Qian Runshui without saying anything more. Then I'm leaving, Grandpa. Take care of yourself. Qian Runshui took the reins and sat on the horse, looking at Qian Daoliu reluctantly. Li Fei and Sister Ying also mounted their horses, and after waiting for Qian Runshui to say goodbye, they walked towards Tondo City. Shortly after the 3 left, 2 streams of light flew out of Wuhun City and followed them. After several days of trekking, the 3 of them finally arrived at Tondo City. Shui, Sister Ying, let's separate from here, Li Fei said in a deep voice on a street near the Imperial Palace in Tondo Academy. Then you have to be careful and don't reveal your soul ring configuration unless absolutely necessary, Qian Runshui reminded. Yeah, Li Fei nodded. Sister Ying came to Qian Runshui's side, and the 2 disappeared instantly without even a trace of fluctuation. Sister Ying's chameleon spirit is really powerful. It can actually make people invisible. If my mental power hadn't reached Contra and absorbed the spiritual condensation wisdom skull, I wouldn't have been able to sense her presence. After seeing the disappearance of Sister Ying so many times, Li Fei still had a sigh on his face. Qian Runshui had already arrived at the palace. He believed that in a few days, Shui Qinghe would die, and Qian Runshui would also start his undercover career. Looking at the recommendation letter in his hand, Li Fei walked towards Tondo Royal Academy. Now was the enrollment period for Tondo Royal Academy, and he soon arrived at the gate of the academy. There were already many well-dressed people queuing up at the entrance of the college. Li Fei lined up silently at the back, very low-key. Soon it was Li Fei's turn to test. He glanced at the soul power test crystal and put his hand on it to inject soul power. He didn't stop until level 29. Oh my god, how old is he when his soul power is level 29? How on earth does this guy practice? Which family is this kid from? The surrounding students exclaimed and looked at Li Fei in disbelief. There were so many of them just now, and the person with the highest soul power was only level 23. Li Fei ignored them. The 29th level of soul power was his intention. Only geniuses are qualified to be recruited by Shui Qinghe after graduation. Go in, Elite Class 1, Dormitory Building 301, Building 3. He handed the recommendation letter to the teacher. The teacher read the contents of the letter carefully, issued a certificate and handed it to Li Fei. After receiving the certificate, Li Fei walked on the main road of Tondo Royal Academy and looked at the surrounding environment. He had to say that it was indeed an empire. The environment in the academy was more beautiful than that of Wuhun Academy. There were handsome men and beauties everywhere, and they behaved elegantly. They were communicating with each other, and there were many students surrounding one person. Soon Li Fei found dormitory building number 3, came to dormitory 301, opened the door and walked in. The dormitory has 2 rooms and 1 living room, and the decoration is very gorgeous. All kinds of expensive furniture are placed just right. After a casual glance, you know that your roommate has not arrived yet. After finding the bedroom with his name written on it, Li Fei walked in, took out the bedding prepared by his mother from the storage bracelet, and spread it on the bed. He put a change of clothes into the closet, lay on the bed, and took out a book. I read the book happily. The book is called The Strange Records of Immortal Grass, which records the knowledge on various kinds of immortal herbs. Although it is not as complete as the records of the Tang sect, it basically covers everything, but it is missing some usage methods. Li Fei has not forgotten that the Sunset Forest is right next to Tondo City, and the fairy grass in the Eyes of Ice and Fire is still waiting for him. Anyway, he also knows the way Tang San solved the poisoning of the old poison in the original work, so there should be no problem in replacing a few jelly grasses by then. Du Gubo had a treasure trove without knowing it, and he didn't look for any information about the various grasses in Bingwo Liangyi's eyes for so many years. No wonder the poisoning could not be solved for many years. Squeak. There was the sound of the door opening in the living room, and then Li Fei heard the knock on the door, and quickly put the book back into the storage bracelet. Enter. After the voice fell, a man with a tall figure, short hair standing straight on his head, and a slightly square face with a chilling and iron-blooded aura walked in and said proudly to Li Fei. My name is Zhe Liang. He is the son of the Imperial Marshal Zhe Long. He is 12 years old this year. He is a martial spirit, a level 23 assault-type battle spirit master. What is your name? It's really direct, with a military demeanor, and doesn't beat around the bush. But the Wuhun Palace is really powerful. There must be people from them in Tondo Royal Academy. Is it because they directly put the son of the Imperial Marshal in the same dormitory with me so that I can control part of Tiondo's military power in the future? My name is Li Fei. I am the son of a declining nobleman on the border. I am 12 years old. I am a martial soul master and a level 29 assault-type battle soul master. Feeling deep in his heart, Li Fei got up from the bed and came to Zhe Liang's side. With a calm look on his face, he stretched out his hand and said with a smile. Because of your attitude, I will make you my friend. Zhe Liang shook his hand and looked at Li Fei with some surprise, not only because Li Fei's strength was far superior to him, but also because Li Fei's attitude towards him was neither humble nor arrogant, and he and others flattered him when they saw him. Flattery is completely different. You are not as domineering as other nobles, and I recognize you as a friend. Li Fei replied in the same tone. Ha ha. Zhe Liang laughed twice, stepped forward and hugged Li Fei's shoulders, and said happily, let's go, I will treat you to dinner. It's better. My appetite is a bit big, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. Li Fei was not disgusted. This was also the case between good brothers in his previous life, but thinking of his terrifying appetite, he kindly reminded me. Young master, I grew up in the army. I have never been afraid of anyone when it comes to eating. I don't believe you can eat better than me. Zhe Liang slapped his chest loudly and said arrogantly, if you don't believe me, let's compete. Quote. Then I will be disrespectful. Since you have already mentioned this, you must agree to it. I thought that the only thing in my storage bracelet was a 5 million gold card prepared by my mother. If I have to live here for who knows how many years, it will be difficult to replenish it in the future, but I can still save one meal after another. Inside the Tondo Royal Dining Hall, the surrounding students kept pointing at Li Fei and Zhe Liang in the middle, but the two kept stuffing various foods into their mouths as if no one was watching, staring at each other. If I had known better, I would have listened. An hour later, Zhe Liang, who had reached his limit and couldn't eat any more, looked at Li Fei, who was eating a chicken drumstick without spitting out the bones. He couldn't help but touch his wallet. He didn't know how much he would bleed this time. Although you won't spend it all at once, but you will definitely have to be frugal in the future. Just eat until you are 80 cents full. Eating too much is not good for your health. Another hour later, there were already 2 piles of plates on the table. Li Fei patted his slightly swollen belly and said casually, Li Fei, your martial spirit should not be the real body but Teodi, right? Hearing this, the corners of Zhe Liang's mouth twitched. After eating so much, he was only 70% full, and he couldn't help complaining. How could it be? In order to be able to practice quickly, I chose the gluttonous pig for my first soul ring, so I ate a little too much. Li Fei made a slight gesture with his right hand and explained with a smile on his face. In fact, Li Fei's current appetite is not entirely due to the passive soul skill of gluttony, but also to the tempering of the 6 internal organs by the soul power of the 5 elements. The 5 elements correspond to not only the 5 internal organs, but also the 6 internal organs, which has greatly improved his digestive ability, so even hard bones can be digested quickly. Okay, I'll go check out. Zhe Liang naturally understood the gluttonous pig's soul skill and walked towards the cashier as if resigned to his fate. After Zhe Liang paid the money, the two left the canteen. Li Fei, let's go and compare notes. Let me see the gap between you and me. Zhe Liang looked at Li Fei with a fighting spirit. Okay, if you lose then, don't say I bullied you. Li Fei nodded, and the two of them walked towards the arena in the academy. The arena is where Tondo Royal Academy allows students to fight souls privately, and it is also where the school competition is held. After arriving at the arena, several people are already fighting souls here. But in Li Fei's opinion, it was just like playing house. The two came to the empty ring and looked at each other. So strong, no flaws at all. Possessed by a martial spirit. Zhe Liang looked at Li Fei solemnly, but found that there was no chance to attack. In just 2 minutes, under the huge pressure, he finally couldn't help it, and possessed the Yuan martial soul, and 2 yellow soul rings rose up. The first soul skill, Dragon Scale Strike. Zhe Liang waved his hands, and his soul power turned into hundreds of dragon scales and shot towards Li Fei. It is indeed much better than the students on the ring next to it, but it's a pity that it's still not enough. Li Fei shook his head, his expression condensed, and he left an afterimage on the spot, drew a trajectory in the air, and came to Zhe Liang's side. He dodged Zhe Liang's attack, and punched him in the stomach with a backhand. The terrifying power made Zhe Liang bow like a shrimp and vomit bitterness. The severe pain made him hold his stomach and find it difficult to move. Zhe Liang, my strength is pretty good, right? Li Fei lifted Zhe Liang and raised his eyebrows. Awesome, I never thought that I would be knocked down by one blow, and I am still a person without martial arts. Zhe Liang said with emotion. He didn't even think about the blow that Li Fei just made, and it was so fast that he didn't after reacting. He now seriously doubted that Li Fei was not of the power attack type, but of the agility attack type. You rely too much on soul skills. Although the soul skills given by soul beasts are powerful, they are far inferior in terms of control. When you used your first soul skill just now, your body was a little stiffer than usual, so you were I took a chance. Hearing this, Zhe Liang fell silent, thinking about the meaning of Li Fei's words. At the beginning of this situation, Li Fei himself did not realize that using soul skills would cause stiffness. After all, several of his soul skills were not offensive. He was also in the body of the martial spirit. His control was amazing, and the stiffness was short enough to be ignored. He discovered this characteristic when he was fighting Qian Runshui. After noticing Qian Runshui's awkwardness during the fight, he realized that the acquired soul skills were relatively difficult to control and would cause stiffness problems. Of course, this awkwardness can be eliminated through constant use and control. From then on, Li Fei and Qian Runshui had an important item in their training, soul power control. It seems I'm still far behind you. Zhe Liang sighed. Just practice. Once you turn your soul skills into instinct, any problems will be solved naturally. Li Fei patted Zhe Liang's shoulder to comfort him. You're right, I want to practice more, let's go to the mimic training field to practice now. After saying that, Zhe Liang pulled Li Fei to train, but Li Fei broke away directly. I'll forget it. This training is no longer useful to me. I'd better go back to the dormitory and prepare what I need for class tomorrow. Facing Zhe Liang's puzzled look, Li Fei explained that the fundamental reason was that he didn't want to have too many entanglements with Zhe Liang, fearing that the two would not be able to do anything in the future because of their bond. Okay, I'll go there alone. Zhe Liang was not suspicious and ran towards the training ground alone, while Li Fei also walked towards the dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, Li Fei entered a perfect state and began to sit cross-legged on the bed to practice his soul power. He increased his soul power and tempered his body at the same time. After eating alone in the afternoon, Li Fei saw Zhe Liang coming back with a stinking sweat. He washed briefly and then went back to the bedroom to rest. He seemed exhausted. The next day, early in the morning, Li Fei and Zhe Liang came to Elite Class 1. As a genius class in Tondo Royal Academy, the students in the class were all souls with level 20 or above, but they all had soul powers below level 25, so Li Fei, who has a soul power level 29, seems a bit out of place. And Li Fei also started his life as a student. In order not to expose his terrifying soul ring configuration, apart from talking to Zhe Liang every day, he would be a little transparent the rest of the time, not communicating with others and not participating in the soul master aspect. During the battle, he concentrated on practicing and studying soul guides. From time to time he went to the Sunset Forest to fight and kill, and to investigate the location of the Ice and Fire Eyes. Just like this, a year later, Li Fei's soul power reached level 45, and his strength reached 2,000 kilograms. Most importantly, the soul guide he had always wanted to create was finally completed. In the dormitory, there was a large amount of broad bean-sized metal on the table. Li Fei held a carving knife in one hand and a broad bean-sized deep-sea-colored metal in the other. He was highly concentrated and carefully carved the magic circle on the metal. He was full of spirit. Condensed wisdom skull. Li Fei's talent in soul guidance is not much worse than Huo Yuhao's, and he can also accurately control the depth of each sword. Under the influence of the soul power, the carving knife was very sharp, and various mysterious lines appeared on the metal. As the last knife fell, the entire metal emitted a blue light. "Ha! I finally made this mimicry bracelet." Li Fei shouted happily, quickly picked up the other broad bean metals on the table, strung them all up with ropes, and turned them into a bracelet to wear on his left hand. Summoning the soul ring and injecting soul power into the bracelet, the originally purple and black soul ring turned into yellow and purple. The effect is good. Now I don't have to worry about anyone discovering the over-limit soul ring. He looked at the bracelet with great satisfaction. There were 12 blue gold beads on the bracelet. Each bead was a first-level soul guide. The combination of the 12 beads became the bracelet of mimicry. This is the soul guide that Li Fei imagined. The purpose is to hide the configuration of his soul ring. He can fine-tune it by relying on the magic circle of the mimetic environment, and turn it into a magic circle that can change the color of the soul ring, and then carve it into the blue gold. Because of the lack of manufacturing methods for soul guides in Douluo continent, there are only a few parts of the Wuhun Palace, but the array is still intact. Soul guides are made by carving soul power arrays on metal and then combining them together. Done. It was with this information that Li Fei made the first-level soul guidance device, the mimic bead, but one was not enough to change all of Li Fei's soul rings, so he made 12 and turned them into bracelets to wear. Body. Second soul skill. Vajra is indestructible. The second soul ring lit up with yellow light, and Li Fei's whole body turned into gold. In the process, he concentrated his mental power highly and found that the soul ring did not appear purple, and finally felt relieved. Li Fei, come with me quickly, Your Highness Shui Qinghe is coming to inspect the school. As soon as he put the items on the table into the storage bracelet, Zhe Liang rushed in from the outside, picked up Li Fei and rushed towards the classroom. Why are you so anxious? His Highness Shui Qinghe is here. Why are you so excited? Li Fei was helpless. Shouldn't Qian Runshui be busy with Shui Qinghe's affairs? Why did you come to school? I heard that His Highness wants to visit the future pillars of the empire, which is right there in the classroom. If you perform well in front of him, you can take up a position in the empire in advance. You are so good, you can definitely do it. Zhe Liang quickly explained. Okay, I'll go with you. Li Fei sighed. Soon the two arrived at the teaching building. As soon as they arrived, Li Fei saw Shui Qinghe, played by Qian Runshui, humbly talking to the students, very approachable. A handsome middle-aged man with a scepter in his hand was watching all this with a smile on his face. Li Fei also guessed the identity of this man, who should be Shui Qinghe's teacher Ning Fengji. Who is this? Ning Fengji naturally knew Zhe Liang. He looked at Li Fei with some curiosity. He could feel that Li Fei's strength was far superior to other students. Sect Master Ning, this is my roommate Li Fei. His soul power has reached level 34. He is currently the only soul master in our elite class. Zhe Liang pulled Li Fei to Ning Fengji and introduced him. He seemed very excited. Hello, Sect Master Ning. Li Fei said humbly. Hello, little brother, you are really young and promising. At such a young age, you have already achieved the cultivation level of a soul lord. Your achievements in the future will be limitless. Ning Fengji was courteous and did not look down on Li Fei because of his status as the leader of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, should be said to look down upon anyone. He could see the extraordinary pride in Li Fei's eyes. This pride was not given by his status, but by his absolute confidence in his future achievements. Sect leader Ning is joking, I am lucky to get your award. Little brother, you don't need to be so humble. Young people should be full of vitality. It's not good for you to be so mature. Ning Fengji patted Li Fei on the shoulder and persuaded. The boy has had this kind of personality since he was a child, and he may not be able to change it in a short time. Li Fei touched his head and said, slightly embarrassed. He is a time traveler. His way of thinking and behavioral habits will instinctively weigh the pros and cons and plan for his own interests. This is difficult to change, otherwise it will be like a child since childhood. Teacher, who are you talking to? Qian Runshui walked over slowly, pretending to be curious. Oh, I'm chatting with this little brother Li Fei. Ning Fengji introduced Li Fei's situation to Qian Runshui with a smile. Oh, Qian Runshui pretended to be surprised, stretched out her hand, and said with a smile, it seems that brother Li Fei is still a genius. Your Highness, you are so complimentary. Li Fei reached out and shook Qian Runshui's hand. He felt that there was an item in his hand. He knew it was for him, so he unknowingly clasped it in his hand, thinking find an opportunity to put it away later. Teacher, let's check it out in other grades. Seeing that her goal was achieved, Qian Runshui chatted with Li Fei for a few more words and then said to Ning Fengji. Okay. Ning Fengji nodded and turned to look at Li Fei. Then little brother, let's leave first. Your Highness, walk slowly. Sect Master Ning, walk slowly. Li Fei said respectfully. After the two of them walked away, Zhe Liang looked at Li Fei with envy and said loudly, I'm so envious of you, boy, for being able to shake hands with His Highness. Why don't you come face to face with the two of them next time? Li Fei said teasingly. Then forget it. Looking for an opportunity, Li Fei left the classroom and came to a hidden place. He took out what Qian Runshui gave him. It was a piece of paper saying that he would see you at the back of Tondo College at 10 o'clock tonight. Using his soul power to smash the note into pieces, Li Fei returned to the classroom and continued the class as if nothing had happened. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Li Fei quietly opened the window of his dormitory, relied on his soul-sensing skills to evade the security guards, and came to the woods in the back mountain. It was close to the sunset forest and usually no one came. As soon as Li Fei arrived, Sister Ying appeared in front of her with Qian Runshui. As soon as they met, Qian Runshui threw herself into Li Fei's arms and hugged her tightly. Li Fei frowned because Qian Runshui's soul power was only level 49. When they entered Tondo City, Qian Runshui's soul power had reached level 47 and was close to level 48. 1 year the time has only improved by 1 level. What's wrong, Li Fei? Qian Runshui asked in confusion when she saw Li Fei's frown. How did your strength improve so much? I told you before you went undercover that you can't slow down your strength improvement just because of being an undercover agent. Li Fei said with a slight blame in his tone. Sister Ying disappeared silently without disturbing the two of them. You can't blame me for this. I have been studying Shui Qinghei's living conditions for the first half of this year. After killing him, I tried hard to play him. The prince is very busy with government affairs and has no time to practice. Qinren Shuisong. Li Fei opened his eyes, glanced angrily, and explained coquettishly. That won't work. In the Douluo world, strength is the most important thing. Strength is the foundation. Li Fei's voice rose slightly, and he gently touched Qian Runshui's face and suggested, you can ask Sister Ying to help you find someone. The substitute is here to deal with the prince's affairs, so you have to take time to practice hard. But although my Yunwan skull can simulate the colors of martial souls and soul rings, it cannot hide the number of soul rings. The soul power of Shui Qinghei, who I play, is only in his early 40s. Adding soul rings rashly will arouse suspicion, Qian Runshui said worriedly. Shui Qinghei's current teacher is Ning Fengji, the master of the Qibao glazed sect. His vision, wisdom and knowledge are not comparable to those of ordinary soul masters. Once Shui Qinghei's soul ring appears abnormal, there will definitely be suspicion. Don't worry about this, I have a way to solve it. You just need to find a substitute during this time, Li Fei said with a proud smile. How do you solve it? Qian Runshui looked confused. Look at me. Li Fei injected his soul power into the mimicry bracelet, and 3 yellow and purple soul rings appeared without any violation. Your soul ring. Qian Runshui closed her eyes and felt it, and found that the soul ring's soul power fluctuated for hundreds and thousands of years. Although it was violent, it was not as domineering as Li Fei's previous 10,000-year soul ring. Li Fei handed the mimicry bracelet on his left hand to Qian Runshui, this is the first level soul guidance device I made, the mimicry bracelet. It can hide the color and number of the soul ring. It can be matched with your Yunwan skull. Should allow you to hide perfectly. Qian Runshui put on the bracelet and was possessed by the seraphim martial spirit, constantly changing the color and number of the spirit ring, having a great time. This thing is really useful. With this thing, I will ask Sister Ying to find me a substitute after I go back. After you use it, it will be yours. I can just make a new one later. Qian Runshui smiled and kept touching the bracelet on her wrist, loving it very much. Because she had to play the role of the crown prince of the Tondo Empire, Qian Runshui couldn't stay too long. The two briefly chatted for a while, and Li Fei also gave some constructive suggestions. The most important thing was to ask Qian Runshui to do it. Take control of the Tondo Empire's army. Only by holding power in one's own hands, even if there are changes in the future, can the Tondo Empire be in hand. After Qian Runshui left, Li Fei also returned to his dormitory, took out his carving knife and began to make a mimic bracelet. After working all night, he made 5 beads, barely able to hide the color of his soul ring. Once the soul skill is used, it will be exposed. Yawning, he followed Zhe Liang to the classroom, sat in his exclusive seat in the back row by the window, and began to doze off. Teacher Chu Lin walked to the podium, put the book on the table, scanned the classroom sternly, and said, "Students, I received a notice from above today. In order to prepare for the class of senior soul masters in the continent 3 years later, in the elite competition, outstanding students from each class will be selected to form the royal first and second teams. There are a total of 5 places in our class. Anyone want to sign up?" Hearing this, the whole class exploded instantly. Almost all the students raised their hands, scrambling for spots, and started shouting loudly, completely devoid of the elegant etiquette of aristocrats. "Teacher, I, and I, quote. Although the students enrolled in the Royal Academy of the Tondo Empire are all children of nobles, more than 2/3 of them will not be able to inherit their family titles in the future. Even if they serve as a substitute in the continent-wide Senior Soul Master Elite competition, they will still be rejected by Tondo. The title of Viscount given by the Empire." Quiet. Chu Lin frowned slightly. The strength of the 6th ring Soul Emperor exploded, and the entire classroom fell into silence. "Li Fei, come up here." "Teacher, please don't do it." Li Fei yawned and said with a tired look on his face. "Come up. You had level 29 soul power when you first entered school, and you must be more than that now. And I also found that you often go to the Sunset Forest to practice alone. Come up and show your strength to the classmates." Chu Lin's eyes revealed. Seeing that there was no room for doubt, he stepped back and smiled, and continued, "Speaking of which, your boy has never participated in the freshman competition or various competitions. I haven't seen your soul ring configuration yet. What a risk. Fortunately, I stayed up late last night and made 5 mimicry beads, otherwise the secret would have been exposed today." Li Fei was startled and walked slowly to the podium. The best configured yellow and purple soul rings were displayed, and the burst of soul power was accurately controlled at level 34. Even Chu Lin could not detect anything strange. Sure enough, you kid, who is usually so quiet, has actually been promoted to 5 levels in 1 year. You are the only one who will be a member of the team this time. Chu Lin nodded with satisfaction and immediately put Li Fei's name down. "Then teacher, I'll go down first." After saying that, without waiting for Cholan to speak, he returned to his seat and continued to doze off. Chu Lin shook his head helplessly. He felt that Li Fei was different from other aristocratic children. He was a bit maverick, did not like to socialize and show himself, and concentrated on doing his own things. Each of these students in the class is very good at socializing and always seizes various opportunities to show off their strengths in order to benefit themselves. After Li Fei sat down, everyone's eyes were on this burly young man, with unspeakable envy in his eyes, but no one objected because his strength was there. "Okay, stop looking, you can decide the remaining 4 spots by fighting." After Chu Lin finished speaking, he led a group of students towards the ring. Li Fei did not go there, but went back to the dormitory to catch up on his sleep. After eating until noon, he continued to make the mimic beads in the dormitory, seizing the time to make the mimic bracelet. 2 days passed, and the remaining 4 people were selected, namely Zhe Liang, Kong Yan, Yin Jun, and Shichuan. Except for Zhe Liang and Li Fei, who were familiar with each other, the rest of them knew at most one name. Chu Lin led 5 people to the largest classroom. There were already nearly 20 people in the classroom. In the front row were 10 young people who looked to be 18 or 19 years old, with pride written all over their faces. No need to think, these people are members of the same team. The age limit for participating in the Continental Senior Soul Master Elite competition is under 25 years old, so the students selected by most colleges to participate are around 20 years old and close to graduation. They are strong enough and have relatively rich combat experience. In the competition it is also easy to get results in middle school. And Li Fei, who has just entered school, is not only a proper reserve, but the purpose of joining the competition is to increase experience and accumulate experience for the future Soul Master competition. Meng Shenji slowly walked to the stage and began to talk about the various situations and training plans of the competition. The main meaning was that the old team members should pay attention to cooperation, and the new team members should train seriously and learn from the strengths of the old team members. It's actually this old guy who is personally in charge of the Tondo team. Looking at the Meng Shenji on the stage, Li Fei was slightly surprised. As one of the 3 major educational committees and born in the Wuhun Palace, the Meng Shenji was not weak in strength and was considered an extremely powerful existence in Contra. Because of his cultivation, Li Fei was arranged to train with the members of the first team, and his time was almost occupied every day. Various teams cooperated and competed against each other. The purpose was to make everyone familiar with each other and form a tacit understanding. The captain of the first team is called Zhang Weibiao. He is 18 years old. His martial spirit is Earth Dragon, a kind of sub-dragon martial spirit. His attack power and defense power are both very powerful. His soul power has also reached level 41. He is currently the only one in the team besides hiding. Li Fei, the only soul sect. After training for more than a month, Meng Shenji finally gave everyone 5 days of rest to have a good rest. In the dormitory, Li Fei was packing his things and planned to go to the Sunset Forest to practice for 3 days. He had roughly determined the location of the ice and fire eyes, but there was a poison array arranged by Douluo Bo outside. He was not the God King who was proficient in using poison. Entering rashly is courting death, so I can only try my luck to see if I can get on the line with Douluo Bo. The purpose was very clear, just to see if he could get a few immortal grasses from Douluo Bo. After reaching level 40, Li Fei could clearly feel that the speed of soul power cultivation had slowed down a lot. In more than a month, the speed of soul power cultivation had slowed down a lot. The growth is not much. At this rate, it will take 3 years to reach level 50. Tang San has been born, and the real great world will come soon. If you don't have enough cultivation, you won't even be qualified to participate. The most important thing is that there may be gods behind Tang San, Bibi Dong and Qian Runshui. Tang San. Let's not talk about Sanhe Qian Runshui. Bibi Dong's experience is very strange. Both martial spirits are very consistent with the attributes of Rakshasa god. Various miserable experiences have made her state of mind move closer to Rakshasa godhood. There is no Luasha behind her. The push from the god of Sha makes no sense at all. Whether it is for the lives of yourself and your family, or to make changes in the world, strength is a must. After packing up the necessary things, Li Fei set out towards the Sunset Forest. He had walked the road many times, so he was familiar with it. He soon arrived inside the forest and walked towards the area where he found the poisonous mist. Whoosh! Li Fei's figure walking in the forest suddenly flashed and disappeared. A huge tiger emitting black mist appeared where Li Fei was just now, causing a huge crack. It turns out to be a rare soul beast-like ghost tiger. Judging from the color of its soul power, it should be at the 20,000-year-old level. Its strength is comparable to a soul king above level 55. Now we are in trouble. Roar! Guy who roared, and his figure turned into 3, surrounding Li Fei from 3 directions. Li Fei's expression instantly became solemn. His strength was stronger than that of ordinary soul kings. He could absorb Kunmujin like this, but it was still inferior to a 20,000-year-old ghost tiger. Of course, he could use Beiji to kill him. But then there is no point in practicing. Second soul skill. Vajra is indestructible. The third soul skill, perception. The three ghost tigers rushed directly towards Li Fei, using two soul skills instantly, feeling the attack trajectory of the three ghost tigers. It's so fast, I can't escape. The soul power under his feet continued to explode, his body kept turning, and he barely avoided the attacks of two ghost tigers. He was slapped in the chest by the third ghost tiger and was blown away dozens of meters. The power of the Soul King is far beyond that of ordinary Soul Kings. He almost broke my golden light and left me in a perfect state. But this kind of strength is just right. I have to train myself. He stepped on the moon step in the air and relieved the ghost tiger. Li Fei fell down steadily. His expression was a little painful, but his eyes were full of excitement. He rushed towards the ghost tiger without retreating. His muscles contracted rapidly, and his strength continued to explode as he fought against the ghost tiger. This kid is a little weird. It's obvious that the soul ring configuration only has the strength of a third ring soul master, but the power he explodes with each move is not much different than that of the ghost tiger. Standing on a tree in the distance, Jiu Gubo's eyes kept flashing doubts. Li Fei's exposed soul ring configuration was only yellow and purple. How could he be an opponent comparable to the top Soul King? But with such a configuration, it not only blocked the attack of the ghost tiger, but also fought back and forth with the ghost tiger. In a short period of time, Li Fei had already fought hundreds of moves with Gaihu. His clothes had long been torn into tatters, and there were wounds all over his body. Blood was constantly overflowing, and blood was also flowing out of the corners of his mouth. The ghost tiger on the opposite side was also in bad condition. His body was also covered with various wounds, and even a large part of his tail had been broken off. Roar! A trace of timidity flashed in Gaihu's eyes. He bared his teeth and kept roaring at Li Fei. After circling Li Fei twice, he turned around and ran away deep into the forest. How spineless. After complaining for a while, Li Fei was relieved. If the battle continued, he might not be able to defeat this ghost tiger. He subconsciously used his senses to explore the surrounding environment. Li Fei was stunned for a moment. On the ground, his body was shaking uncontrollably, and his face was frightened. Under his perception, there was a violent and cold snake-like aura locked on him 200 meters to the right. The intensity of the aura was only slightly weaker than that of Snake Spear Douluo, and he was definitely a powerful person at the level of titled Douluo. He instantly understood that the person coming was none other than the poison Douluo Dugubo he had longed for, but now this situation was not what he wanted to meet. It was obvious that he was being targeted by Dugubo. "Boy, have you discovered me?" Dugubo's voice rang in Li Fei's ears, and his figure appeared instantly the next second. "Junior Li Fei has met Senior Dugubo," Li Fei said respectfully. "Tell me about it. How did you do it?" Dugubo said with cold eyes, leaving no room for doubt. Li Fei instantly understood what Dugubo meant, which should be that he used the strength of the three-ring Soul Master to compete with the 10,000-year Ghost Tiger. Actually, this junior came to Sunset Forest to look for Senior. "The purpose is to make a deal with you," Li Fei said, neither humble nor arrogant. "It seems that I have indeed seen you in the Sunset Forest before." Dugubo showed a hint of surprise, quickly recalled it in his mind, and said uncertainly. Dugubo was very withdrawn due to his personality and poisonous nature, so he had to frequently come to Bingwo Liangyi's eyes to suppress the toxins in his body. Li Fei had come here frequently in the past year, so he had naturally met him several times. This junior has gone into the forest many times to look for seniors this year, but he has not met him. I didn't have much hope at first, but I didn't expect that we would meet in this way," Li Fei said with a smile. "Who are you? What kind of deal do you want to do with me?" Dugubo asked. Junior Li Fei is considered a member of Wuhun Palace. Before he finished speaking, Li Fei was directly pressed to the ground by a violent soul force, and blood continued to overflow from the corner of his mouth. "Is this the pressure of a titled Douluo? It's like a mountain is pressing down on you." Li Fei felt like he was being pressed into the ground by the mountain. He had no way to resist. He couldn't breathe. It was as if he saw relatives from his previous life waving to him. "Martial Soul Hall actually dares to come here. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Dugubo was full of murderous intent and said very angrily. His already violent soul power increased again. Crack! The sound of cracking bones kept ringing. Li Fei's 7 orifices began to bleed. Not only that, Douluo Bo's soul power also increased. It contained the poison of the Jade Phosphorus Snake King, and after entering the body, Li Fei's consciousness began to blur. Junior. Can, solve. The poison in. You and your granddaughter. With the last hint of consciousness, Li Fei said the last sentence with difficulty and fainted. The violent soul power disappeared instantly. Douluo Bo looked at Li Fei in confusion, the murderous intention in his heart not diminishing at all. However, thinking of his only 6-year-old granddaughter, he reached out and lifted Li Fei up, and rushed toward the poisonous mist in the distance. Got in. I don't know how long it took, but Li Fei returned to consciousness. He only felt that there was pain everywhere in his body. It was very difficult to move. Fortunately, the meridians were not damaged and his soul power could still be used. The 4th soul skill, self-healing. The soul power turned into surging and pure vitality flowing throughout the body. The broken bones, damaged muscles and internal organs were quickly repaired under the action of this vitality. An indescribable itching feeling spread throughout the whole body. Li Fei knew that the wound was recovering, so he gritted his teeth and persisted. Not only that, he also felt a stream of medicinal power in his body, which also turned into life force to repair his injury. Under the influence of the 2 forces, Li Fei's injury recovery speed became faster, the itching became more intense, and his body began to emit white light. If you observe carefully, the white light is also mixed with a few rays of silver light. Chapter 51. After an unknown amount of time, the itch in his body weakened until it disappeared. Li Fei slowly opened his eyes and found that he was in a world full of all kinds of grass, with red and blue lights in the distance. Not only that, he could smell the strong smell of sulfur. Boy, I'm surprised you woke up so quickly. Douluo Bo looked surprised. He actually treated Li Fei with the attitude of giving it a try. After all, Li Fei's injuries were on the verge of death at that time. Most of the bones in his body were crushed and his 5 internal organs were also damaged to varying degrees. But this kid's body is stronger than that of the Soul Emperor, and the strength of his 5 internal organs has reached an incredible level. His self-healing ability is several times that of ordinary people. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be sure to cure him. With a sigh in his heart, Douluo Bo looked at Li Fei with confusion. As a poison user, Poison Douluo is also a master in the use of drugs. He was not very sure about Li Fei's injury. After removing the toxins from his body, he tried it with the mentality of treating a dead horse as a living horse doctor. Senior, am I still alive? Li Fei, who had just woken up, was still a little fuzzy and asked doubtfully. Still alive. Douluo Bo nodded, then a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he said with murderous intent, however, if your answer later does not satisfy me, I will make your life worse than death. The cold murderous intent made Li Fei wake up instantly, and he tried to get up, but found that his body was still very weak and it was difficult to move. Although I don't know how you recovered from that horrific fatal injury, it is impossible for your body to recover immediately. In your current situation, it will take at least half a month to recover. Douluo Bo sneered, using a tone that left no room for doubt. Said, tell me now, what does Wuhun Palace want from me? And how do you know about me and my granddaughter? I have been here in Douluo for so long, and I have forgotten that this old monster seems to have a grudge against Wuhun Palace. This time, I am seeking my own death. Li Fei was frightened for a while, and a bitter smile appeared on his mouth. Senior, Junior, I'm here on behalf of an individual, and I don't know what happened between Wahundian and you. As for the poisoning of you and your granddaughter, this Junior has just speculated, except for the treatment method. Oh, Douluo Bo didn't believe it at all. How could such a far-fetched reason be convincing? With a look of disdain on his face, he directly asked, tell me first, how to deal with the poison in me and my granddaughter. Quote, Senior, this Junior has been in the library of Wuhun Palace for 7 years. I have read most of the books in it. I found that poisonous soul weapon Wuhun is the best, but if it is a beast Wuhun, the poison will be brought to the Soul Master through possession, and the Soul Master will be poisoned and eventually die, right? That's right. Douluo Bo nodded and looked at Li Fei with some surprise. What about the way to detoxify? At this time, he already believed that Li Fei had a way to solve his and his granddaughter's problems. Actually, the method is very simple. Seniors only need to store the toxins in the body like poisonous snakes. The poison of poisonous snakes is stored in the poison glands. The poison of weapon soul masters is stored in the weapon soul. Seniors only need to find a place in the body to store the toxins. That's fine, Li Fei said with a confident smile. Where can toxins be stored in the body? Douluo began to think. As a master of poison, he also has a lot of research on medicine. All the organs in the human body are connected. If toxins are stored in that part, they will quickly spread to the whole body. Suddenly something occurred to him, and he quickly raised his head and said, "You're talking about soul bones." That's right, it's the soul bone. Although the soul bone is integrated into the human body, it does not belong to any organ. Forcing toxins into it will not affect your own health, Li Fei said firmly. In the original work, Douluo used this method to detoxify. Success is naturally possible now. And once successful, Douluo will express his love and not only let himself go, but also get some fairy grass. Anyone who has seen it from a distance knows that Douluo, an old monster, attaches great importance to commitment and affection, and he does what he says. Okay, during this period, I will study the method of forcing the poison into the soul bone. Once I succeed, I will let you go and agree to the deal with you. Then thank you, Senior. Li Fei was overjoyed. He believed that with Douluo's knowledge of toxins and medicine, he could develop the poison and detoxify it. It was only a matter of time before he could get the few jelly grass he needed. After Douluo left, Li Fei began to practice while lying on the bed, intending to restore his strength first and get rid of this weak state. Sure enough, this is near the eye of ice and fire. Fortunately, the soul power in my body can barely form a cycle and I am on the edge. Otherwise, in this environment, let alone cultivation, I might die without knowing it. As the cold and hot extremes of heaven and earth spiritual energy poured into his body, Li Fei also determined his position in his heart, and then began to concentrate on operating his soul power and began to practice. In this extreme environment, you must be more careful about the meaning of cultivation. If you make a slight mistake, you will be overwhelmed by the two conflicting energies and die. However, the benefits are equally huge. As the two extreme auras circulate in the body under the powerful control of Wuhun, he could clearly feel the powerful tempering of the two spiritual energies on the body. In just 2 minutes, it was comparable to the previous 2 hours of training. After practicing for 2 or 3 hours, Li Fei felt that his body strength had recovered a little. He took out food from the storage bracelet and started eating. After eating, he slowly got up and started walking around. Yiyan is in a special situation. The plants here are all precious medicines that Li Fei has seen in books. It can be said that they can be found everywhere, and even fairy herbs can be found at intervals. Is this the power of the two dragon kings? Just corpses can create such a miracle. Looking at the twin springs of ice and fire that were like Tai Chi, Li Fei was filled with shock, and just stared at the shock composed of extreme ice and fire. For the next time, Li Fei kept practicing in the eyes of ice and fire. By the way, he began to check various immortal grasses according to the records in the book. Of course, with the toxin, he only looked at it from a distance and did not get close. During this period, he also became familiar with Douluo. This old monster may have made progress due to his poisoning, and his attitude towards Li Fei was not as cold as before, and the two of them could still chat. Although Li Fei didn't understand pharmacology and poisons, he had some knowledge of chemistry and helped him create a soul guide version of a microscope. He also suggested that he try to fuse the 5 phosphorus poisons to create a more powerful toxin. Ever since he got the microscope, Douluo started studying the effects of various toxins on the human body with the microscope when he had nothing to do, even to the point of forgetting to eat and sleep. No wonder the original book says that the original martial soul has to go through life and death moments before it can reach its potential. This near-death experience has improved my physical fitness so much. Li Fei's body also completely recovered. After recovering, he found that his body had become much stronger, and there was a tendency of a second awakening. Even Ren Du's second meridians were more than half open due to this pressure. But I don't want to have this experience again, so I'd better find a relatively gentle channel to become stronger. There was lingering fear in his heart, and the feeling of being on the verge of death but being able to just watch was unforgettable for Li Fei, so he found the place where the old monster was studying. Old monster, why were you so angry when you heard that I came from Wuhun Palace? Li Fei asked curiously. He wanted to hear the extent of the feud between Douluo and Wuhun Palace to see if it could be alleviated. Know the reason why he attacked me. Actually, it's nothing. 6 years ago, Wuhun Palace saw that I had broken through the title Douluo, so they sent Zhuhuaguan to recruit me. I naturally yearn for freedom and don't want to be restrained, so I refused. Then the two of them had a fight. I was seriously injured and healed in the eyes of ice and fire, so I missed the time when Yunur's father was poisoned and didn't have time to come back to save my son. At the end of the sentence, Douluo also revealed sadness and regret in his eyes. The boy said you were from Wuhun Palace. I thought you wanted to recruit me and restrict my freedom. Of course, you also had hatred, so I didn't control myself when I heard about Wuhun Palace. I saved you because you said it can only cure the poison in Yunur. That's it. Li Fei breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. This hatred may be big or small, but it's just difficult to solve. If it doesn't work, just wait until the old monster is strong enough to fight Douluo again. I can stand it. By the way, you said you want to make a deal with me. What is the specific deal? Douluo put down the microscope in his hand and asked curiously. What I want to trade with you is just the fairy grass in the eyes of ice and fire. I originally wanted to use the method of treating you in exchange, but now, I will give your granddaughter a big gift. Li Fei said with a smile. No, if you want to take the grass here, take it. As long as you don't destroy this place. Douluo said decisively. During this time, he saw Li Fei observing some herbs against the book, and faced Li Fei's doubts. He looked at me and explained, not to mention the treatment method, the microscope you made for me is enough. With it, I can not only improve my poison skills to several levels, but also have a better understanding of medical skills. This microscope is the best treasure to me. Are you really not going to listen? This great gift will definitely allow your granddaughter to break through to a titled Douluo in the future. Don't you care either? Li Fei asked. What did you say? Titled Douluo. Douluo looked shocked, then grabbed Li Fei's shoulders and said, what kind of gift is it? Old monster, come with me. Li Fei smiled confidently, and took Douluo to a somewhat desolate place. Then he dug gently and hard twice with his hands, and a crystal-clear blood-red ginseng appeared here. The ginseng was in the shape of a dragon. Like a bloody dragon, instinctively feeling the danger and wanting to run away, but was firmly grasped by Li Fei. Old monster, this is a 30,000-year-old crystal blood dragon ginseng contaminated with dragon energy. Based on your understanding of pharmacology, if you make it into a mild medicine for your granddaughter to take, it should be able to make his jade phosphorus snake martial soul evolution, even evolves into the poison dragon spirit, and will enhance her potential, with the possibility of becoming a titled Douluo. This blood dragon ginseng was found by Li Fei using his perception skills. Fortunately, it grew in the eyes of the ice and fire eyes. If it had grown naturally from the outside world, his intelligence would have been opened long ago, making it difficult to catch. You brat, this is what you call a big gift, give me something from my territory. Douluo said, pretending to be angry. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know, would you? Exclamation mark quote. Li Fei smiled awkwardly, and then took Douluo to another location, where he saw a snow-white fairy grass directly in the distance. The fairy grass was crystal white, every blade of grass seems to be dripping with water. It is slender and curved, and looks like a swan's neck. This is a bloody swan kiss, a kind of fairy grass that can multiply any poison 1,000 times. If you can once you get it, your combat power should become several times stronger without any problem. But this fairy grass has a characteristic. As long as it is touched, any toxin will multiply to the point where it can completely engulf the human body. Old monster, your whole body is full of poison. It is both a divine thing and a poison to you. If you are not careful, you will be poisoned. You'll be poisoned instantly. So if you are not absolutely sure, don't touch this fairy grass. Li Fei's expression was unusually solemn and serious, which made Douluo, who was still a little excited, calm down. He understood that Li Fei would not be aimless, otherwise he would not be so serious. Although the bloody swan kiss is powerful and very suitable for Douluo, it is also very harmful. In the original work, Tang San had a mysterious jade hand and he was very careful when picking this fairy grass and did not give it to Douluo. He must be afraid that Douluo would be killed, poison. But when Douluo can make use of this immortal grass, he will definitely become the first extreme poison attribute Douluo in the history of Douluo. Okay, boy, I get it. Douluo nodded seriously, but he was thinking about how to get this fairy grass. After hearing Li Fei's explanation, he understood that the bloody swan kiss was very suitable for him. Also, this is for you. You can take away the jelly grass here if you need it. He took out a cloth bag from his body and threw it directly to Li Fei, and Douluo flew away in a hurry. Is this a wishful treasure bag that can hold living things? I didn't expect Douluo to give this to me. Looking at the cloth bag in his hand, Li Fei was very surprised. This kind of soul guidance device that can hold living creatures is very precious. I'm afraid there is only one in the entire continent. Douluo would throw it to him without hesitation. Look, I really consider myself a friend. Li Fei began to think about those immortal herbs that were suitable for him and his family, and he planned to leave the rest to Douluo. Li Fei immediately thought of the wonderful antler grasses that were suitable for him, the flaming apricots, and star anise growing on the eyes. Black ice grass. After his parents, Li Fan and Qian Runshui had all thought about it, Li Fei did not immediately leave with the fairy grass, but chose to practice at the ice and fire eyes. The practice here was so effective that he planned to practice. Let's talk about it after reaching level 50. Li Fei was not in a hurry, but Qian Runshui on the other side was extremely anxious. What did you say? Li Fei has been missing for more than a month. In the East Palace, after hearing Sister Ying's report, Shui Qinghe, played by Qian Runshui, asked in disbelief. I heard from the students in the school that more than a month ago, the Tondo team had a 5-day holiday. Li Fei went to the Sunset Forest to practice, and then disappeared. Sunset Forest. Qian Runshui's pretty face showed a thoughtful look, as if Li Fei had said it before there. Her eyes lit up, and she said firmly, Douluo. It must be Douluo. Li Fei told me before that he wanted to see Douluo for something. He must have taken Li Fei away. Quote, Uncle you and Uncle Array go to the Sunset Forest to find Douluo. If Li Fei is killed by him, you two will crush him to ashes. Qian Runshui said with an unprecedented cold expression, full of murderous intent. Yes, young master. Two voices reached Qian Runshui's ears through soul power, and then the two figures disappeared outside the window. Since Bibi Dong succeeded to the throne, Qian Runshui's status as a preparatory saint has been cancelled. The people in the Elder Hall and the Enshrinement Hall also changed the title of Qian Runshui, becoming Young Master. Near the ice and fire eyes. This bloody swan kiss is really terrifying. If I touch it directly, I might really be poisoned to death. Douluo said with lingering fear as he looked at the poison under the microscope. He used jade gloves and a knife to cut a small piece of leaf from the bloody swan's kiss, put it under a microscope, dropped a little of the jade phosphorus snake emperor's poison into it, and began to observe. So old monster, if you are not absolutely sure, don't even think about touching it. Li Fei, who was boxing at the side, reminded with a smile. Don't underestimate me. Although I can't absorb it into my body for the time being, I have found a way to turn it into a trump card for fighting. Douluo said proudly. Douluo, get out of here. Li Feigang wanted to ask how to turn it into a trump card, when a loud shout rang out throughout the forest. This is the voice of Elder Yulong. Li Fei instantly recognized the owner of the voice and immediately thought that it was sent by Qian Runshui. Old monster, you don't have to go there, leave this matter to me. Seeing that Douluo wanted to go out to fight, Li Fei immediately stopped him, then swallowed an antidote pill, and with the help of Yubu's power, he headed outside fly away. What an exquisite technique, it can actually make a soul sect fly in the air for a short time. Douluo looked surprised. Elder Yu, I'm here. After flying out of the ice and fire eyes, Li Fei shouted at the figure in the distance to attract its attention. Li Fei, you are indeed not dead, where is Douluo? Yu Long and Gu Zhao came to Li Fei in an instant. Elder Yu, Elder Pagoda, please go back and tell Shui that I still have some things to do with Senior Douluo and it's impossible to go back in a short time. Tell him not to worry. Li Fei said respectfully. Let Douluo come out, we will come to him if we have anything to do. Yu Long said firmly. Elder Yu, Before Li Fei could finish his words, Douluo's figure flew out of the poisonous mist and stood not far behind Li Fei. He said coldly, I'm already here. I don't know about the Wuhun Palace. What do the two elders want from me? Old monster, go back first. Li Fei turned to Douluo and said, Boy, although I am not very powerful in combat, I am still a titled Douluo. I have been threatened at the door of my house. What's the point of not coming out again? Douluo's expression was cold, his eyes continued to stare at Yulong and Irebo, his surroundings the soul power began to vibrate slightly, and the poisonous gas surrounding the yin-yang eye poison formation also began to float towards this side. Li Fei, you kid, get out of here first, this is a matter between us titled Douluo. As soon as he finished speaking, Yulong waved his hand, and a soft soul force sent Li Fei 1,000 meters away. Then Li Fei saw a 30-year-old jade phosphorus snake king facing off against a white snake spear of the same size. Crashed together. The huge soul power began to crack and collide, forming a strong shock wave that swept away in all directions. The soul beasts and trees in the path were carried away and flew out. Li Fei was not able to stand still, and he was also heading further away. Fly in the direction. A 30-meter-long huge dark red agouti appeared next to the poisonous mist. Its mouth was slightly opened and it continuously absorbed the poisonous gas in the poisonous array. The poisonous gas began to decrease at a speed visible to the naked eye. Is this the power of titled Douluo? Stabilizing his figure in the air, Li Fei looked at the devastating scene, his heart filled with shock and yearning. No, now is not the time to sigh. Yulong, the martial souls of the two people are very restrained from the old monster's martial soul, and something will happen to the old monster if this continues. Li Fei saw the jade phosphorus snake king being stuck on the ground by the tip of the snake spear, and the huge agouti next to him was opening his mouth. His soul power began to gather continuously. He immediately exploded with all his soul power, and flew towards the center of the battlefield at full speed on moon steps. Go. Two elders, stop it. Shui didn't ask you to do this. Li Fei's angry voice mixed with soul power instantly spread to the entire battlefield. Yulong and Ayurveda were stunned. They had never seen such anger. Li Fei felt an inexplicable tremor in his heart. He felt very strange. The huge snake spear and agouti slowly turned into soul power and disappeared. Old monster, are you okay? Li Fei flew to Douluo's side and asked worriedly. It's okay. Douluo's face looked extremely ugly. As long as it's okay. Li Fei turned around and looked at Yulong and Guzhou in the sky, and said coldly, Two elders, I know what you mean, and I appreciate your kindness. I will go over to explain Shui in person. You two should please come back. The main purpose of Yulong and Chigu is to warn Douluo and let him know that Li Fei has someone in the Wuhun Hall, and the Wuhun Hall will not let him go if he hurts Li Fei. The two looked at each other, nodded at the same time, and their figures turned into two streams of light and flew towards Tondo City. Old monster, I'm sorry because I caused you such serious injuries. After feeling Douluo's injury, Li Fei said with a guilty look on his face. I don't blame you, it's because I'm not strong enough. Douluo shook his head, looking a little disappointed. The two people today have only 1 or 2 levels more soul power than him. Under normal circumstances, they can survive at least dozens of moves. However, the reality is that he was controlled by just a few moves. If Li Fei hadn't stopped him in time, he would have died. Old monster, you have to force the poison into the soul bone in your body as soon as possible, otherwise your soul power will not be able to improve. Li Fei advised. During this period of time, because of the microscope and the bloody swan kiss, the old guy focused on the study of toxins, but put aside the method of forcing the poison into the soul bone. With his research on poison, becoming a super Douluo would not be a problem. However, due to the burden of being poisoned, he had been a Douluo for several years and his soul power had not improved by 1 level. I know, I will continue to research ways to force poison after I go back. Douluo nodded, glanced at the young face next to him, and smiled. Boy, your status in Wuhun Palace is not low. I am just an accompanying student, I don't have much status. The main reason is that Shui has a transcendent status and she values me very much. That's why I persuaded those 2 elders to leave. Li Fei smiled bitterly. Then who is that Shui? Douluo asked. Senior, it's better not to ask. Now knowing her identity will do you no good. The strength of Wuhun Palace is far beyond your imagination. Li Fei said in a dilemma. All right, in the East Palace, the prince's study. Yu Long told everything about the situation in Sunset Forest. Uncle Yu, just do what Li Fei said, I believe him. He must have his own ideas. Since he and Du Gubo have become friends, maybe this poison Douluo will also be a member of your elder hall in the future. Member. Qian Runshui thought for a while and said slowly. Yes. Yu Long was helpless. The young master looked like Li Fei no matter how he looked now, and he still believed in Li Fei even though he was like this. After Yu Long left, Qian Runshui came to the window and looked in the direction of the Sunset Forest. Near the ice and fire eyes. 3 days have passed since the last war. During this period, Li Fei took the time to return to Tondo Royal Academy. He took a long vacation with Chu Lin in the name of Du Gubo and returned here again. Li Fei doesn't plan to take the jelly grass yet. His martial soul is on the verge of a second awakening. Once he takes it, it will definitely awaken his martial soul for the second time. However, this is not in line with Li Fei's plan. He is thinking about the gathering of the 5 elements. After awakening, let the martial soul be tainted with the characteristics of the 5 elements, laying a certain foundation for the future. If he awakens now, there is a high probability that it will not be in line with Li Fei's plan, so he plans to first use the 2 extreme soul powers of ice and fire to practice. However, you can use it first to see through the autumn dew. If you eat it, you can practice your sharp eyes and see through all kinds of strange objects. Li Fei was also a little excited when he thought that he had developed the top-level auxiliary skill of piercing the autumn water dew with his piercing eyes. Put your mouth close to the fairy grass, and inhale gently, and a few drops of fairy dew on it will be sucked into your mouth. As the fairy dew disappears, the autumn dew instantly withers, turning into fly ash and drifting in the wind. Li Fei began to practice with his 5 hearts pointing toward the sky. As the gentle power flowed through the body, part of the soul power rushed towards the brain and entered the 2 major acupoints of Taiyin and Taiyang. At this time, Li Fei's head was shrouded in a faint red gold light, which turned into little starlight and converged towards Li Fei's eyes. After being absorbed by his eyes, his pupils slowly turned into red gold. 2 hours later, the golden light covering Li Fei's head dissipated, and Li Fei slowly opened his eyes. Everything around him was so clear, even the veins on the fairy grass 50 meters away were clearly visible. It's a pity that there are no self-created soul skills for cultivating eyes in the Wuhun Palace, otherwise the full power of these eyes would be unleashed. It seems that we need to find a way to plan Tang San's purple demon eyes. Withdrawing his soul power from his eyes, Li Fei frowned slightly and began to think. As one of the most important organs of the human body, the eyes have a large number of nerves connected to the brain, and there is no corresponding method. Li Feike didn't dare to follow the research. If he made the slightest mistake, his eyes would be damaged. After drinking the dew of looking through autumn water, Li Fei not only had unique eyes, but his mental power also increased by about 30%, completely reaching the peak level of Contra. There was no way to improve his eyes for the time being, so Li Fei concentrated on practicing and stopped thinking about it. On this day, Li Fei was practicing his own boxing skills by the ice and fire eye spring. The 3rd soul ring lit up, sensing the situation in the body, and constantly adjusting the muscle soul power to avoid the conflict between the 2 extreme soul powers. Refining your body and meridians. Whoosh! Du Gubo flew in from a distance, holding a little girl with purple hair and blue eyes in his arms. He was looking at Li Fei curiously. It was Du Gubo's granddaughter Du Guyan. Grandpa, he is the Li Fei you are talking about. Suddenly, Du Gubo pointed at Li Fei who was boxing and asked curiously. The clear and lively voice made Du Gubo smile like he had never seen before. Yeah, that's that brat, Du Gubo said with a smile. Old monster, I heard you. Li Fei said with black lines on his head. Boy, Yun'er can't withstand the medicinal power of the whole blood dragon ginseng yet. I want to use its roots to make some mild medicine to help her lay a good foundation. During this time, you can help me take care of it. After saying that, Du Gubo put Du Guyan down. As soon as he landed, Du Guyan jumped around and looked around Li Fei, and then ran to other places. Old monster, she can't bear the extreme spiritual power here. Li Fei looked at Du Guyan and reminded him quickly. Don't worry, I will harm my granddaughter. Through microscope observation, I successfully refined some pills that can allow Yunur to live here for some time. With this environment of ice and fire, even if she doesn't practice, it will not be good for her. It's also great for your health. Du Gubo rolled his eyes in a rare move and looked at Li Fei angrily. Okay, I'll make the medicine, just don't let her touch those poisonous herbs. Li Fei had no choice but to turn around and continue practicing, but a part of his mental perception was placed on Du Guyan's body to prevent the little girl from walking into certain areas where she shouldn't be. Hey, you play with me. After a while, Du Guyan got tired of shopping, walked up to Li Fei, and said proudly. Little girl, get up, don't you see me practicing? Li Fei used his soul power to blow Du Guyan away and fell to the ground. Without giving Du Guyan any face, he continued to perfect and create his own wooden boxing technique, using his soul power to temper his body. You dare to reject me, see if I don't tell my grandpa. Du Guyan kicked Li Fei, but was easily dodged. In anger, she directly threatened Li Fei. Go now, Li Fei said perfunctorily. Just wait for me. Du Guyan was furious, turned around and ran towards the place where Du Gubo made medicine. You brat, how dare you bully my granddaughter? There was a loud shout in the distance, and then Du Gubo arrived in front of Li Fei and kicked Li Fei in the butt, causing Li Fei to lie on the ground like a dog. Old monster, you have to be reasonable. Why did I bully her? Li Fei stood up and pointed at Du Gubo and said angrily. My granddaughter said you bullied her because you bullied her. Why do you have any objection? Du Gubo looked domineering. Stop. Du Guyan stood behind Du Gubo and made a face towards Li Fei. No objection. Li Fei smiled coquettishly, but his teeth were itching with anger. This naughty kid must be taught a lesson in the future. In the next few days, Li Fei battled wits and courage with Du Guyan, a little kid every day. Although he ended up winning every time and successfully taught him a lesson many times, he was sued by Du Guyan every time and Du Gubo was sued by Li Fei. Fei's butt was spanked several times, which made him understand that Du Gubo is a granddaughter controller, and whatever his granddaughter says is whatever he wants. Du Guyan also seemed to like to cause trouble for Li Fei. He would go to Li Fei whenever he had trouble, and provoked Li Fei, which made him miserable and wanted to give this girl a good beating. Finally, Du Gubo's medicine was ready, and Li Fei felt that he was about to be liberated. Yunur, come here and take this. Du Gubo held a porcelain bottle in his hand, poured out a bloody crystal-like pill from it, and handed it to Du Guyan's hand. Du Guyan nodded and swallowed it in one gulp. Suddenly his body began to glow with blood, and his expression began to become painful, but soon the blood light disappeared. In the following days, Du Guyan would swallow a blood ginseng pill every day for 7 days, swallowing all 7 pills that Du Gubo refined with roots, reaching the limit that Du Guyan could bear. Looking at Du Guyan shrouded in the white light of the awakening stone, both Li Fei and Du Gubo were a little nervous. It was Li Fei's theory that Du Guyan should eat blood ginseng pills before awakening. After he knew that Du Guyan's martial soul had not yet awakened, this method was told to Du Gubo, by absorbing the power from the blood ginseng, and then awakening the martial soul to see whether the martial soul can complete the evolution through this power. Even if the evolution cannot be completed, a very strong foundation can be laid. Having achieved certain achievements in medicine, Du Gubo felt that the theory was feasible, so he used the weak crystal blood ginseng to make those medicines. Hiss. The sound of a poisonous snake spitting out a message sounded, and a jade phosphorus snake flew out from Du Guyan's right hand. Different from the ordinary jade phosphorus snake, this jade phosphorus snake had 2 big bumps on its head, as if something was about to grow. The green scales also reveal a hint of golden light. It seems that your kid's idea has been successful. Du Gubo looked at the jade phosphorus snake that was very similar to the jade phosphorus snake emperor and said happily. It's a pity that the martial spirit didn't evolve successfully. Li Fei said with a hint of regret. No, it has evolved successfully. It's just that Yunur's jade phosphorus snake emperor hasn't produced poison pills yet, so it's not fully developed yet. When her soul power level rises, the jade phosphorus snake emperor will naturally appear. Du Gubo said with a look on his face. Smile. He took out the soul power crystal from the storage space and stretched it out in front of Du Guyan. Yunur, let's test your soul power. With the injection of Du Guyan's soul power, the light in the crystal instantly filled up, blooming with a faint green light. It's true that he was born with full soul power. It's great. As long as Yunur can practice well, being titled Douluo won't be a problem. A pleased smile appeared on Du Gubo's face. Hearing this, Du Guyan looked at Li Fei proudly. Old monster, you have helped me too much. My theory of over-limit soul ring absorption cannot tell you that unless you join the spirit hall, it will only bring disaster to life. But I can tell you something that can also increasing the absorption period of martial souls should allow your granddaughter's first soul ring to reach 600 or 700 years without any problem. Li Fei ignored Du Guyan, but looked at Du Gubo and said seriously. Living together in the eyes of Bingwo Liangyi for a long time, the strangeness of Li Fei's soul ring had long been discovered by Du Gubo, but he didn't say anything about it. What? Du Gubo asked. Whale glue, preferably 10,000-year whale glue, is a special substance in the brains of cetacean soul beasts. It can strengthen the body, enhance the strength of muscles, bones and meridians, increase the body's endurance, and thereby increase the absorption life of the soul ring. However, this thing should only be found on Poseidon Island now, maybe Hanhai City also has it. Li Fei has always been thinking about whale glue. Although it is introduced in Wahundian's collection, it is not complete. Over the years, he has also tried to collect some seafood similar to black glue, but unfortunately there is no piece of whale glue. The main reason why he didn't find it was that he didn't know the goods. Of course, Li Fei also thought about hunting, but there were no sea soul masters in Wuhun Palace. Facing the two whale groups guarded by the evil killer Whale King and the deep sea demon Whale King, he wanted to basically impossible. Even Sea Douluo would have a hard time getting benefits from these two whale kings, so there probably isn't much whale glue on Poseidon Island, and even the effects of whale glue haven't been discovered yet. Another point is that Wuhun Temple and Poseidon Island have enmity. Once Wuhun Temple's titled Douluo enters the sea, they will definitely be blocked by the 7 sacred pillars. Of course, there are also lone evil killer whales and deep-sea demon whales, but it is extremely difficult to find them in the vast sea. In addition, his soul power has already reached level 43, so the effect of whale glue has little effect on him. It worked, so Li Fei finally gave up. During the Peerless period, the role of whale glue was well known to everyone. A large part of the reason was because the death of the two whale kings and the destruction of Poseidon Island gave mainland soul masters the opportunity and ability to explore the sea and capture whale-like soul beasts. Is that thing really as effective as you say? Du Gubo had a thoughtful look on his brows. He was not bad at applying medicine, but he had never heard of whale glue. However, he had heard about the special characteristics of sea soul beasts. After all sea soul beasts reach 100,000 years, their brains will be turned into medicinal materials. It is just that not many people in the mainland have obtained it since ancient times. Yes, but it requires 10,000 years of whale glue. Thousands of years will not improve much, Li Fei said firmly. Okay, after I force the poison into my soul bones, I will go to Hanhai City and Poseidon Island for a visit. Du Gubo chose to believe in Li Fei and also considered Du Guyan's future. Once successful, Du Guyan's future will be in above him. With the help of a microscope and Li Fei's research on meridians, the two of them spent a month finally creating a method of forcing poison. Du Gubo also began to slowly force his own poison into Medusa's skull. After the method was successful, Du Gubo also began to teach Li Fei and Du Guyan how to practice while he was poisoning. Li Fei benefited a lot from the title Douluo's teachings in all aspects. Bengquan Kaishan. Li Fei made a fist with his right hand and swung it out like a sharp arrow, hitting Du Gubo's arm hard. The powerful force had no effect in front of this somewhat skinny arm, and it was easily blocked. Boy, although your self-created soul skills are extremely powerful and flexible, you don't know enough about the distance during battle. In battle, not only speed and strength, distance is also very important. Using his soul power to gently knock Li Fei away, Du Gubo chose to bully him forward, continued the attack, and pointed out Li Fei's weaknesses in the battle. Junyu Broken Rock. The broken power condensed, and he smashed the poisonous blade condensed by Du Gubo in front of him with one punch. Li Fei also used this power to retreat 10 meters backward. But facing Du Gubo, who was already a titled Douluo, how could such a move be effective? Du Gubo ducked to avoid the overflowing power, and came in front of Li Fei, using various exquisite moves continuously, to attack. After a while, Li Fei, with a bruised nose and swollen face, took the medicine thrown by Douluo, swallowed it into his body, and began to recover from his skin injuries with the help of his fourth soul skill. Old monster, you don't know how to be gentle, watch me beat this handsome face, how can I go out to pick up girls in the future? After recovering from the injury, there were still some light bruises on his face. Li Fei sat next to Douluo, joked. You brat, if you look like this and you go pick up a girl, she won't be scared to death when she sees you. Douluo rolled his eyes and also made a joke. I'm just jealous, but you've definitely become a bit more handsome, old monster. Li Fei smiled and looked at Douluo's appearance. His face, which was originally sunken and like a skeleton, had partially recovered and become a little fuller. A small part of his messy green hair had returned to black. After being combed by Douluo with his small hands, Li Fei smiled. The whole person has become a lot more handsome. Actually, you are very handsome. Douluo, who had been stunned for 2 seconds, suddenly said something. Hearing this, Li Fei froze on the spot, looking at the old man in front of him in disbelief. Is this really the lonely poison Douluo? I was about to reach out and touch Douluo's forehead. Pa! Douluo slapped Li Fei on the back of the head, and said angrily and with a bit of embarrassment, you brat, what are you thinking about? He also realized that he might have said the wrong thing. It's nothing, I just didn't expect you to say something like that. Li Fei's mouth twitched and he could hardly hold it in anymore. It was really unexpected. Now the corners of Douluo's mouth began to twitch. Unlike Li Fei, he wanted to hit someone. The two looked at each other, then laughed. You brat, all the poison in my body will be forced into Medusa's soul bone in another month. At that time, I will go to Hanhai City and Poseidon Island to look for the whale glue you mentioned, laying a good foundation for Yunur's future. Then there will be no one here to accompany you. After laughing for a while, Douluo looked at the poisonous mist billowing in the distance and said. I'm alone. There's really no way to show up. I'll go live in Tondo City for a while. Li Fei said nonchalantly. As long as you have arrangements. Douluo nodded. A porcelain bottle and a piece of paper appeared in his hand, and he sent it to Li Fei's hand and said, I made some modifications to the poison array surrounding the ice and fire eyes. It's a new detoxification pill and prescription. How can you modify the poison array? Li Fei was a little confused. The poison array surrounding the eyes of the ice and fire eyes was so powerful that anyone below the soul saint would basically die. If the soul saint and above were not poison attribute soul masters, they would be able to deal with poison. It is difficult to enter even if you have a certain understanding. It's not you who told me the value of those fairy grasses. Each one is a unique treasure. Of course, it must be protected well. The original poison array can only deal with soul masters below the soul saint. I don't think it is safe, so on the original basis, some other poisonous weeds were planted to form a mixed poison, and then some bloody swan kiss debris was sprinkled inside, which greatly increased the mixed poison and formed a new protective circle besides me. There is someone who has the detoxification pill, otherwise no one else can enter. Douluo glanced at Li Fei angrily and said slightly with satisfaction. You are awesome. Li Fei gave a thumbs up after hearing Douluo's manipulation. From this, it can be seen that Douluo has begun to use the power of the bloody swan kiss for his own use. Now he just lacks just the level of soul power. He took the pill recipe and looked at it, becoming familiar with the materials. Except for a few, the materials were all very common. Even he could make it. He threw it into the storage space and thought about it for a moment, hesitating a little. Hey, old monster, if I attack the Tondo Empire in the future, what will you do? During this period, he also learned through the Wuhun Palace's intelligence that Douluo was only born in the Tondo Empire, and had not yet happened in the original work where he was chased by Jew Ghost Douluo and was saved by Snowstar from the brink of death. Fighting against the imperial family has nothing to do with it. But just in case, Li Fei decided to ask. He didn't want their relationship to become tense in the future because of this matter. The Spirit Hall is going to take action against the Tondo Empire. Douluo asked back. He immediately thought of this possibility. Of course, this was something that top experts like them understood. Yeah, Li Fei nodded, hesitated, and said sincerely, old monster, now I just want to know your attitude towards the Tondo Empire. You brat, I don't have much affection for this country. In this life, I only yearn for freedom, research on drugs, and watch Yunur live a happy life in the future. I don't have many other pursuits. What does Wahandian want to do? What does it matter? Douluo looked indifferent, as if there was no difference between the Tondo Empire and ordinary people. That's good. Li Fei breathed a sigh of relief, with a smile on his face. Also, I will find someone to say hello to Wuhun Palace, and no one will disturb your free life. It seems that you really treat me as a friend, you brat. You actually revealed some of Wuhun Palace's plans and helped me solve Wuhun Palace's troubles. Douluo looked at Li Fei strangely, feeling a little moved in his heart, and immediately his tone changed, but the hatred between me and Zhu Wagwan will not disappear because of this. Of course, is this your freedom, old monster? Li Fei said with a smile on his face. As for Wuhun Palace wanting to take action against the Empire, this is not a secret to the top leaders of Tondo. They know that sooner or later it will happen. Arrival. After receiving Douluo's assurance, Li Fei also said goodbye. He cut the phoenix coxcomb from the root from the eyes of ice and fire, put it into the Rui Baobao, and left the root for it, hoping that this immortal plant with the grass can grow back in the future using the environment here. After taking the detoxification pill, Li Fei passed through the new poison formation and walked towards Tondo City. The second prince and the third prince had been killed by Qian Runshui. They all died in strange ways, and Shui Yi also began to be poisoned. He felt that the plan needed to be adjusted and it would be a pity to kill Shui Yi directly. But this does not mean that Li Fei is benevolent and will not use other methods. There are many spiritual souls in the Wuhun Palace. With the research on poisons of the agouti and the snake spear, there is no problem in brainwashing. With the brainwashed Shui Yi, it would be much easier to master the Tondo Empire than originally planned. After arriving in Tondo City, Li Fei purchased some supplies and then walked into an inconspicuous shop. There was nothing in it except some groceries. He told the waiter, and after a while, Sister Ying's figure appeared. Appear in the grocery store. Sister Ying, this is the letter and the fairy grass for Shui. You give it to Shui and then act according to the plan in the letter. Li Fei handed the phoenix coxcomb and a letter into Sister Ying's hands. Yes, Sister Ying nodded, approached and then disappeared. Li Fei bought some groceries and walked towards the ice and fire eyes again. His practice was not over yet. After returning to the ice and fire eyes, Li Fei entered a perfect state and continued to practice. In the East Palace, Qian Runshui put down the letter in her hand, looked at the red gleaming coxcomb on the table next to her, held it in her hand, and felt the power of pure yang inside, with a happy smile on her face. Sister Ying, please go back to Wuhun Hall and explain to Grandpa that you will call me 10 spiritual elders. Li Fei is right, killing Shui Yi with poison may not necessarily lead to the throne. Once someone kills Shui Yi, he will inherit the throne. I found that the counterattack I faced was absolutely unique. I still had to use the power of the spiritual soul master. Not only could I cooperate with the poison to brainwash Shui Yi, but I could also control other officials in the empire. In this way, the Tondo Empire would soon become mine. Come on. Qian Runshui immediately picked up the pen next to her and wrote a letter, then turned around and ordered. Yes, young master. Sister Ying took the letter, her figure blended into the surrounding space, and disappeared. Go and handle these government affairs for me. I'm going to retreat. No one is allowed to disturb me. Qian Runshui looked at a beautiful woman next to her and ordered in a cold voice. This woman was the person Qian Runshui was looking for. Because the substitute would be discovered, she perfected it and married this woman as the crown princess and asked her to help handle government affairs. Qian Runshui could practice with peace of mind and observe and eliminate enemies. People who have other ideas. Yes, Your Highness. The woman bowed respectfully, sighed slightly, and then came to the memorial office and began to review the memorial. Ever since she was arranged by Wuhun Palace, she understood her fate and could only be honest. Bear. Qian Runshui came to her secret room. Remembering the instructions in the letter, she swallowed the phoenix coxcomb in one gulp without chewing it. Suddenly, waves of pure yang power surged out from her stomach, violently and hotly. The power made Qian Runshui feel hot and painful all over. Phoenix coxcomb is a pure yang fairy grass. It is not only suitable for fire attribute soul masters, but also more suitable for Qian Runshui, a sacred attribute with added fire. After being completely absorbed, Qian Runshui's sacred attributes and fire attributes will be enhanced, and it may even be possible. Transforming into the ultimate holiness and ultimate fire was what Li Fei chose for Qian Runshui after thinking for a long time. 4 purple, black, and black soul rings rose up, constantly assisting Qian Runshui in refining the power of Phoenix coxcomb, steadily increasing Qian Runshui's soul power, and soon reached the limit of level 50. Ren Shui also woke up. It has actually reached level 50. Not only that, the temperature of my sacred flame has become so terrifying. A ball of golden flame appeared in Qian Runshui's hand, constantly changing its shape. A trace of flame fell on the table next to her, instantly burning the table into ashes. The princess next to her shrank unconsciously in fear. A hint of love appeared in his eyes, but soon disappeared. He walked out of the secret room, looked at the sky in the distance, and murmured, "Li Fei, we can definitely change this world. I want the angel's flame to burn in this world again." Quote, Wuhun Hall, Worship Hall. Sister Ying handed Qian Runshui's letter into Qian Daoliu's hands. Act according to Shui's idea. Inform all the Soul Douluo in the Elder Hall's spiritual system and let them all go to Tondo City. On the one hand, they will help Shui control Shuiyi, and on the other hand, let them use hypnosis and brainwashing to fight in Tondo City. In the main departments of the empire, we will place close associates of Wuhun Palace into positions and gradually take over the Tondo Empire. After reading, Qian Daoliu handed his token to Sister Ying and said slowly, "Yes." Sister Ying nodded, picked up the angel token and walked towards the Elder Hall. Qian Daoliu walked slowly outside, looked at the starry sky, and said with a smile, "Boy, you really surprised me. Phoenix coxcomb, with it, Shui's talent will become even more outstanding. My 100-year wait is finally here. With the result, the glory of the angel will finally come again. Brother, can Shui really inherit the throne of an angel?" The burly golden crocodile walked out and asked with both happiness and disappointment in his eyes. He was in the enshrinement hall just now, and naturally heard Sister Ying's report. He thought the conditions for the inheritance of the angel gods made me feel a little sad. If Shui, who has absorbed the Phoenix coxcomb, can't succeed, then no one will be able to succeed in the position of angel in the future. I believe in her, Qian Daoliu said calmly, not worried about his future at all. Then congratulations, big brother, Jin Crocodile said with cupped hands. He knew his big brother's long-cherished wish, so all he could do was bless him. In a moment, you can notify me and tell Zhang Mo to stay secretly at the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Tondo City. Secretly help Li Fei and Qian Runshui control the Tondo Empire. Yes, time flies like an arrow, the sun and the moon fly by, and 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Near the ice and fire eyes, Li Fei was naked and waving his fists constantly. As he waved his fists, the sound of dull air kept ringing around him. The muscles continued to squirm, and the violent and domineering momentum continued to spread outside. Li Fei's aura also gradually improved, and finally stopped at a limit, and began to breathe steadily, maintaining a delicate balance. As expected, I am worthy of the ice and fire eyes. In just 2 years, my soul power has been cultivated from level 43 to level 50. With a smile in his eyes, Li Fei slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. The white turbid air turned into a sharp arrow and left a shallow pit on the ground. He stretched his body and made a crackling sound all over his body. Such a powerful lung function, it can actually exhale into arrows. Such a strong body, although the strength is not as good as the titled Douluo, but even I am far behind in other aspects. Dugu Bo's pupils in the distance shrank, in disbelief, watching Li Fei's performance. Old monster, is there a fire attribute soul beast that is about 40,000 years old in this sunset forest? It would be best to have a soul beast like the explosive monkey that relies on heart-burst skills. Li Fei exerted force on his feet and took a step of more than 10 meters to stand in front of Dugu Bo, and asked with a smile. "You brat, I often wonder what kind of monster you are. You actually reached the level of Soul King at the age of 14. The configuration of your soul ring is also at the monster level. Only the year of your 5th soul ring has reached the level of other soul saints. The year I only had it. Douluo sighed with emotion, and then continued. There are also fiery monkeys in the sunset forest, but there are none that are 40,000 years old. However, I was lucky enough to see a 40,000-year-old fire spirit beast in the forest. It should suit you very well. The fire spirit holy beast. The soul beast with the sacred flame. Li Fei said with a surprised look on his face. Yes, Douluo nodded. That's great. I didn't expect that the sunset forest, where the quality of soul beasts is not high, would have such a top quality one. Li Fei was ecstatic. That was the fire spirit holy beast, a dual attribute soul beast of fire and holiness, second only to the titan giant ape. This top-notch soul beast. The quality of the 40,000-year-old soul rings he has heard of is definitely no worse than the ordinary 100,000-year-old soul beasts, and the fire spirit beast's explosive power is very powerful, which is far more suitable for him than the fiery monkey. Old monster, where is the fire spirit beast? It's in the south of the forest. I don't know the exact location. I've only seen it a few times occasionally, but I don't know its habitat. Hearing this, Douluo shook his head. To the south, the sunset forest is so big, you can always find it if you search for a while. Li Fei thought for a moment, then said with a smile on his face, Old monster, help me hunt a soul. Walk, wait for me a moment. Li Fei hurriedly ran to the strange antler blooming chrysanthemum, carefully picked it out, and put it into the rooty treasure bag. The root was also left behind, and there was no need to eat the root to eat it anyway. Then he let Douluo take him to fly to the south of the forest. I have never been to the south of the forest. I didn't expect that there would be an extinct volcano here. No wonder a fire spirit beast would appear here. Looking at the small mountain below that exuded the blazing spiritual power of heaven and earth, and feeling the explosive power inside the mountain, he couldn't help but feel astonished. This extinct volcano is also the origin of the sunset forest. Legend has it that a huge fireball as big as the sun fell here thousands of years ago, forming this volcano. Douluo smiled and explained the origin of the name of the sunset forest. Li Fei nodded, knowing in his heart that the fireball might be the attack from the Ice and Fire Dragon King when he fell, or it might be part of the Fire Dragon King's body that caused such a scene. The third soul skill, perception. The mental power extended out, and everything within a radius of 500 meters was clearly visible in Li Fei's mind. After sensing it, he found that there was a sacred aura in an area. This aura was only found on soul beasts with sacred attributes, right at the base of the volcano. Old monster, let's go take a look in that direction. Pointing to the west side of the mountain near the extinct volcano, the two arrived here quickly. They did not find the fire spirit beast, but there was a huge cave in the distance. There is a trace of divine spiritual power mixed with the fire attribute spiritual power in the cave. The fire spirit beast should be inside. Li Fei sensed the surrounding environment and immediately discovered something abnormal in the cave. There was an unusually violent fire attribute in the cave. Spiritual power, and heat waves spurted out from inside from time to time. There is no place in the entire sunset forest suitable for the fire spirit rope except here, so Li Fei is sure that it must be inside. This cave should lead to the interior of the volcano, where my combat power will be limited, but the fire spirit holy beast can exert far more power than usual. I may not be able to defeat him. Douluo analyzed with a serious look on his face. Dao, most of his combat power is based on poison, and the high-temperature environment will make most of the poison lose its effect. Since it doesn't work inside, then why don't we just squat it outside? I don't believe he will stay inside forever and not come out to eat. Li Fei said with an indifferent expression, taking out the storage bracelet after grabbing more than a dozen different grenades. He began to build a trap near the entrance of the cave, intending to cut off the fire spirit beast's retreat. You brat, what did you bury? Douluo was also a little curious as he looked at Li Fei, who was busy near the entrance of the cave. This is a first-level soul guide developed by me. It is as powerful as a full blow from Contra. I will use it to block the fire spirit beast's retreat. Li Fei smiled and threw it to Douluo with his backhand. A few. Just use soul power to activate this. I believe you will like it. The current grenade is not the original pure gunpowder version, but has been adjusted by Li Fei. It is engraved with a fire array and an enhanced magic array using a carving knife. It is more than 10 times more powerful. It's comparable to Contra's full blow. Douluo's heart stirred up waves, and he looked at Li Fei in disbelief. You brat, are you kidding me? You can try it later. However, it is immune to near-fire attacks like the fire spirit holy beast, so its lethality may be reduced. After burying the grenade and adjusting the activating device, Li Fei came to Douluo's side and explained to Douluo the basic usage of the grenade. Looking at the black ball in his hand, which was only the size of a baby's fist, Douluo still didn't believe it, but he decided to give it a try and carefully put it into his storage belt. The two of them lurked nearby, waiting for the fire spirit saint beast to come out. There was no way to preserve food in the environment inside the volcano. With the fire spirit saint beast existing, there must not be a fire attribute soul beast inside, so the fire spirit saint beast would definitely come out for food. After waiting for a long time without seeing the fire spirit holy beast coming out, Li Fei felt a little bored, so he took out a piece of metal from the storage bracelet, sat there and started carving attentively, with only a carving knife in his hand. As the sword fell, the metal was covered with various mysterious patterns. Douluo recognized it as a magic circle at a glance and asked curiously. You brat, can you make a soul guide? No, a little. I found an incomplete method of making soul guides from the library of Wuhun Palace. I took the time to study it myself. Now I can barely make a second-level soul guide. Unfortunately, it is not very powerful and can barely deal with souls. Zong. Li Fei gently blew off the debris on it and said without raising his head. He continued to carve carefully without stopping. Barely dealing with the soul sect. Douluo looked confused, took out the grenade from his storage belt, and said doubtfully, you said your grenade is powerful enough to hit with the full strength of Contra. That's different. The grenade mainly relies on the highly compressed black powder inside, not the soul power to attack. Li Fei explained with a smile. That's it. Douluo nodded. Time passed by, and the two of them stayed at the entrance of the cave for 3 full days. Li Fei made a lot of parts. When he was about to assemble the soul cannon he designed, he saw a 4-meter cannon. The long and huge fire leopard slowly walked out of the cave, with a proud and confident face. Its shoulders and tail were burning with golden flames, looking sacred and solemn. The fire spirit saint beast looked around, and without noticing Li Fei and Douluo hiding in the dark, he ran towards the area where the spirit beasts gathered in the distance. Old monster, take action. Li Fei, who had been ambushing here for a long time, looked at the fire spirit holy beast with its back turned to him and reminded him softly. Then his soul power completely exploded and turned into an afterimage and rushed towards the fire spirit holy beast. A tungsten steel rod appeared in his hand, and the water attributed soul power wrapped around it. He swung the rod directly, causing ripples in the air like water waves. Flowing water Qinglongyan. With the explosion of soul power, a ball of water appeared on the stick, turning into a huge green dragon and spiraling out. The dragon's roar exploded and rushed straight into the waist of the fire spirit holy beast. Li Fei was fast, but the fire spirit holy beast was even faster. It turned into a golden light and shadow and avoided the bite of the green dragon. With a slight twitch of its tail wrapped in flames, it directly hit the green dragon that Li Fei swung. Scattered, and then the sharp claws wrapped with golden flames plunged directly into Li Fei's chest like a sharp sword. So fast. Such explosive power. Li Fei was shocked in his heart. This fire spirit beast actually exerted all its muscles in an instant. The explosive speed turned into an afterimage even in the perception. He couldn't react at all. 7th soul skill. Martial soul true body. The 5th soul skill. Poisonous impact. Douluo's voice sounded, and a 30-meter-long jade phosphorus snake king was seen from the open space in the distance like a green lightning. It instantly tied the fire spirit holy beast tightly. As the power increased, the fire spirit holy beast's body emitted, there was a click sound, and the entire body began to show irregular shapes. Not only that, the jade phosphorus snake king opened his mouth and condensed his soul power. The jade phosphorus snake venom turned into a green laser and hit the fire spirit holy beast. The jade phosphorus snake venom instantly enveloped the entire fire spirit holy beast. Bah! The sound of corrosion sounded, and more than half of the fire spirit holy beast's fur was corroded away in an instant. The fire spirit holy beast let out a miserable roar, and in the next second golden flames burned from its body, and it began to struggle fiercely. Most of the scales on the Jade Phosphorus Snake King's body were melted, so he had to let go of the bound fire spirit saint beast and quickly climbed to the side. His eyes were glowing green and he stared at the fire spirit saint beast coldly. Crack. As the fire spirit holy beast's body shook, the originally squeezed irregular body made a crisp sound, and soon returned to normal, and began to walk back and forth in front of the Jade Phosphorus Snake King, with timidity in its eyes. "You brat, are you okay?" Douluo's voice came from the Biphosphorus Snake Emperor's mouth. "It's okay, old monster, your poison has become even more powerful." Li Fei, who had hid in a safe position the moment Douluo attacked, shook his head, but his eyes never left the fire spirit beast in the distance. His soul power was constantly condensing, ready to give it a fatal blow at any time. "Is your trap okay? All my poison has been burned away by it with its sacred fire. It may be running away, but I can't catch up with it at my speed." Douluo looked at the man who suddenly lit up with blazing flames. The fire spirit holy beast said solemnly. As a leopard soul beast, Li Fei had already seen the explosive power of the fire spirit holy beast just now. It was as fast as lightning. If the speed exploded at full speed, it would be impossible for him and Douluo to catch up in a short time. "Don't worry, I'll be ready when it comes out." Li Fei took out a small crystal from the storage bracelet and held it tightly in his hand. Crystal is a unique product of Douluo world, called Connection Crystal. As long as the same soul power is injected into two crystals, if any one of them breaks, the remaining one will also break. According to this characteristic, the other grenades can also be detonated remotely. Roar! The corroded wound of the fire spirit holy beast continued to drip with flame like blood. He roared solemnly at Douluo, and a thick pillar of fire exploded like a fire dragon, spraying towards the Jade Phosphorus Snake King that Douluo had transformed into. The Jade Phosphorus Snake King twisted his body to avoid the fire pillar's attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the fire spirit holy beast turned around and turned into golden lightning and ran towards the cave. When passing by Li Fei's hiding place, it glanced disdainfully. Through the previous fight, it understood that this two-legged sheep was not capable at all. Possibly blocking yourself. Boom! The moment the fire spirit holy beast approached the entrance of the cave, the crystal in Li Fei's hand was crushed directly. Flames suddenly shot into the sky within a radius of 20 meters, dyeing the entire sky red. The invisible energy impact directly lifted the fire spirit holy beast. It flew out, the impact was concussive, and a large amount of shrapnel shot into the body of the fire spirit holy beast. It vomited blood, knocked down more than a dozen trees, and fell to the ground. The fire spirit holy beast tried to get up, but staggered several times without success. It just lay there staring at Li Fei and Douluo with hatred in its eyes. He understood that the explosion at the entrance of the cave must have been caused by these two people. "You brat, I remember you only planted 12 grenades. This power is even stronger than that of a titled Douluo of the attack system." Douluo said in disbelief. Now he completely believed in the black round in his hand. The power of the ball is comparable to Contra's attack. Hee. Li Fei smiled sinisterly and said, "If it weren't for the fire spirit holy beast being immune to flame attacks, I wouldn't have wasted so many grenades and used the impact of the explosion to seriously injure it." Douluo nodded and looked at the fire spirit beast in the distance, which was covered in bullet holes by shrapnel. This guy has been seriously injured, but he must still have the ability to fight back. You should wait until it is completely weak, and then kill it to absorb the soul ring. At this time, the fire spirit holy beast's body was full of bullet holes, and even 3 bullet holes pierced its throat. Its breathing became rapid, and its fiery blood kept dripping, igniting the surrounding trees, and the flames continued to spread all around. Diffusion. "I know." Li Fei nodded, and then showed a sinister smile. "Old monster, give me some of your poison." Douluo was so frightened by this smile that he took a step back and asked sarcastically, "What do you want poison for?" "You'll know then." Li Fei stretched out his hand. Douluo gave Li Fei a bottle of poison he had collected with a confused look on his face. After Li Fei got the poison, 6 silver bullets appeared in his hand. He condensed his soul power into a rope and soaked the 6 bullets in the poison. After the bullets were all covered with poison, he loaded them in the wheel of Blatilla striata. He got a little closer to the fire spirit holy beast, came within the effective shooting range, and aimed his gun at the fire spirit saint beast's head. Boom! As the first shot was fired, the fire spirit holy beast stood up instantly, jumped away, and looked at Li Fei warily. Sure enough, he is pretending to be dead. Li Fei showed a smile that was true. The wisdom of a 40,000-year-old sacred soul beast is definitely not inferior to that of humans. How could he wait for death obediently? The third soul skill, perception. Bang, bang, bang. Using his perceptual soul skill to predict the movements of the fire spirit holy beast, Li Fei shot out all 5 remaining bullets in the Beiji. After all, the fire spirit saint beast was already seriously injured, and he dodged 3 bullets with force, leaving the remaining 2 with his physical strength. Not enough, one was shot into the leg, and the other was shot into the waist. The effect of the poison started to work instantly, and the fire spirit holy beast stumbled and fell to the ground. It won't work now. Li Fei smiled proudly, immediately reloaded the Blatilla striata in his hand, and started shooting continuously at the fire spirit holy beast, each shot accurately hitting the non-vital parts of the fire spirit holy beast, and some bullets grazed the fire spirit beast's head and shot to the ground next it. What are you doing? Wouldn't it be better to just kill it? Douluo said with some doubts. It wasn't that he couldn't bear it, but it was just a waste of time. With the vitality of this fire spirit beast, what could he do? A few more hours to live. Old monster, there is a reason why I did this. I once read in the book of Wuhun Palace that if a soul beast less than 100,000 years old dies with strong resentment, it will increase the number of soul bones that can be exploded. Probability, Li Fei explained. But I don't think it resents you. Hearing this, Li Fei immediately turned to look at the fire spirit holy beast. His originally resentful eyes became lifeless, with a hint of dullness in his eyes, and he lay there motionless. Aren't you so fragile inside? Li Fei didn't believe it, with a look of astonishment on his face, and shot several more times, some hitting its body and some grazing its scalp, but the fire spirit holy beast still lay there motionless, leaving Li Fei speechless for a while. Recalling that the theory of exploding soul bones was added in the original work, it was helpless for the soul beast not to cooperate. Boom! Helpless, Li Fei directly ended the life of the holy fire spirit beast with one shot. A black soul ring and golden arm bones flew out from the body of the holy fire spirit beast, and there were traces of golden flames on the golden arm bones. The soul bone really exploded. Douluo said in surprise. That's right, my character is outstanding. Li Fei smiled proudly, picked up the golden arm bone, and handed it to Douluo. Old monster, you will also accompany me to hunt soul beasts these 2 days. I'll give you this soul bone. No need, the properties of this soul bone are not suitable for me and Yunur, you should absorb it yourself. Douluo shook his head and refused. Seeing Douluo's firm attitude, Li Fei put the soul bone into the storage bracelet. With a flip of his hand, the leg bone was in his hand as fast as he could chase the wind in the star forest. He handed it to Douluo. Old monster, this is what I used to do. The leg bone obtained in the star forest has attributes that match yours, but it is not as old as the arm bone just now. You must accept it. Okay, it just saves me the time to find soul bones for Yunur. Douluo looked at Li Fei, then nodded and took down the leg bones. Seeing this, Li Fei showed a smile on his face, came to the side of the soul ring and sat down cross-legged, took out the strange velvet Tongtian chrysanthemum from the bag of treasures, sucked the stamens first, and then ate the petals one by one. Suddenly, hot power surged out from his stomach, and Li Fei instantly entered a perfectly round state, and the soul ring that was pulling the fire spirit beast began to be absorbed. The blazing power of the fire attribute poured into the body instantly and started fighting with the scorching power of Qirong Tianju in Li Fei's meridians. The violent power began to destroy Li Fei's body everywhere, and blood seeped out from the pores of his body like it was free. The whole person turned into a bloody man. Douluo, who was guarding him, was worried, but he didn't dare to act rashly. Li Fei was absorbing the soul ring. If stimulated by external force, the conflict would definitely intensify and he would explode and die. With the help of 2 violent energies, Li Fei's whole body's meridians were instantly opened, and the energy in his body formed a great circulation, absorbing the spiritual energy between heaven and earth, and constantly repairing Li Fei's body. The 4th soul ring lit up instantly, and the body instinctively felt the danger. The self-healing ability was stimulated, and the body was quickly repaired in conjunction with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In the spiritual sea, Li Feizheng was constantly fighting with the remnant soul of the fire spirit saint beast, and punch marks were shot out continuously, blocking the fire spirit saint beast's attack. Fortunately, it was a remnant soul, and its strength was more than twice that of the outside. Otherwise, Li Fei would really be no match for him, and he would be a draw with this one person and one beast. As time goes by, the unreplenished fire spirit holy beast becomes weaker and weaker, and Li Fei becomes more energetic every time he fights. Every fragment of mental power taken from the remnant soul of the fire spirit saint beast is absorbed by it and transformed into himself, of mental strength. Boom! A punch was thrown out and stamped on the fire spirit holy beast, completely breaking it into pieces. It turned into pure spiritual power and was absorbed by Li Fei. At this time, the wisdom skull of spiritual condensation came into play. He began to assist Li Fei in condensing his mental strength, turned into silver star points of light. Li Fei's entire expression also became peaceful, his entire body began to glow with silver light, and his eyes began to glow with golden light, which was continuously absorbed by his eyes. The light of martial soul awakening. How is it possible? The moment he saw the silver light and golden light, Douluo recognized what the two lights were and looked at Li Fei in disbelief. What on earth is this brat doing? What? Can Wu Hun awaken again? The silver light dyed the entire forest silver, and Li Fei's eyes were like flashlights, shooting out golden light and shining on the ground in the distance. It lasted for more than 2 hours before slowly starting to dissipate. But what followed was a stream of 5 colors. Yellow, white, black, cyan, and red. The 5 colors of Li Fei's body surface were constantly changing with each other. His eyes turned completely red gold, and the moment Douluo looked at Li Fei, he suddenly felt heart palpitations. The 5 kinds of flowing light are different from the silver light. They swim around Li Fei's body like flowing water, and his skin, meridians, muscles, bones and other bodies are all shining with light. This is the power of 5 attributes. What did this brat do? Douluo's face outside was full of doubts. Too many things happened in this short period of time that he could not understand. As the 5-color light continued to swim in the body, Li Fei's body began to rapidly strengthen, and his bones, muscles, and meridians began to continuously emit 5-color light. At this time, Li Fei was conscious and controlled the soul power to flow continuously in the meridians. The circulation in the body that had been barely constructed was instantly perfected, and the internal organs began to emit corresponding light. Metal generates water, and water generates wood. The 5 elements interacted with each other, and the forces that were originally somewhat unbalanced in the body were quickly balanced. The soul power moved twice as fast as before, refining the soul power of the fire spirit beast. After another 3 hours, Li Fei finally opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Douluo looking at him like a monster. He couldn't help but wonder, "Old monster, what's wrong? See for yourself." Douluo handed Li Fei a mirror. Picking up the mirror and looking at it, Li Fei found that his whole body had changed. Although his face had not changed, his muscles that were originally made of bronze had become smaller and were as delicate and fair as a baby's skin. His whole person's temperament had completely changed. He was somewhat gentle and elegant, and his brown pupils turned into red gold, as if firelight flashed when he blinked, making him look extremely coquettish. "This is me." Touching his face, Li Fei still couldn't believe it. "Isn't that you? Ever since your body emitted the 5-color light, your muscles have begun to become smaller, and a layer of dirty blood has been discharged from your body, but it was just blown away with the shock of your soul power." Douluo, he said angrily. At this time, Li Fei discovered that there was a lot of dirty blood all around. Not only that, he could actually see the flesh and blood inside through the surface of the leaves. The surrounding sky was also like flames, which made Li Fei stunned. "Stand up. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."